Ladies and gentlemen, if you would please come in and take a seat. We're approaching the hour of 7 o'clock. All non-voters should be in the section to my left. Ladies and gentlemen, if you would please come in and take a seat. We're just about to get going. Since we no longer require a quorum, I will declare that we have a quorum present. I am going to ask the town clerk to give us a posting of the warrant.
Commonwealth of Massachusetts, Plymouth, SS. To either of the constables of the town of Wareham, greetings. In the name of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, you are hereby directed to notify and warn the legal voters of the town qualified to vote in town affairs to meet in Precinct 1, Wareham Town Hall, 54 Marion Road, Wareham. Precinct 2, Ethel B. Hammond Elementary School, 13 Highland Avenue, Onset. Precinct 3 and Precinct 6, Minot Forest Elementary School, 63 Minot Ave, Wareham. Precinct 4 and 5, John W. Deacon School, 760 Main Street, South Wareham. On Tuesday, April 3rd, 2018, at 8:00 a.m. for the election of town officers designated in the official ballot to be adjourned until Monday, April 23rd, 2018, at 7:00 p.m. in the high school auditorium, 7 Viking Drive, Wareham, Mass., at which time the general business of the town shall be transacted and to act on the following articles.
I will waive the reading of the articles.
You are hereby directed to serve this warrant by posting attested copies thereof on or before Friday, February 16th, 2018, in at least one public place in each precinct within the town, and by publishing a copy of the warrant on and before March 8th, 2018. Hereof, fail not, and make sure due return of this warrant with your doings thereon to the town clerk at the time and place of said meeting, given under our hands this 13th day of February in the year 2018. Wareham Board of Selectmen.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you would please stand. The salute to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And now we'll have the singing of the national anthem, and then if you will just remain standing after that for just for a few minutes.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight O'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Ladies and gentlemen, if you just would remain standing, I just would like to ask for a moment of silence. Over the last year, we had several members of our community who have worked for the town in some capacity that have passed away. We have Mr. Philip Strawn, who was a town collector for 27 years. Mr. Donald Rogers, who was a volunteer firefighter for the Town of Wareham Fire Department and served on the Conservation Commission. Mr. David Zimmerowski, who was a police officer in the Town of Wareham and later served as a sewer commissioner. Mr. Stephen Gonsalves, who worked for municipal maintenance as a heavy equipment operator. And Mr. Gilbert Kudo, who was a custodian in the Wareham school system. And Gertrude Wilson, who worked for the Council on Aging as fuel assistance and outreach coordinator for 13 years. If we could just take a moment. Thank you. You may be seated. I would like to thank the Wareham High School Junior ROTC for the presentation of the colors, and Mr. Joseph Ashley, our deputy moderator, for his rendition of our national anthem. I would like to introduce you to those of us who are up on stage. She's gone. To my right, we have our town council, Mr. Richard Bowen, our town administrator, Mr. Derek Sullivan, our chairman of the Board of Selectmen, Alan Slavin, Selectman Patrick Tropiano, our newest member to the board, Mary Mackey Bruce, Peter Teitelbaum, Tony Scaziotti, and then our finance committee, Mr. Bernie Pigeon, Mr. David Hurd, Mr. Ellis Bailey, Mr. Dominic Camarado, Stuart, I do this to Stuart all the time, Stuart Novak, and then we have Mr. Jerry Stefanski, Patricia Rumney, and Glenn Lawrence are members of our finance committee. I want to thank you all for being here. I do have some introductory comments. The duties of the moderator and procedures of town meeting not specifically provided by law are determined by the rules contained in the 75th edition of Robert's Rules of Order, town meeting time, town meeting tradition, and those rules set forth by the moderator to regulate the meeting under general law. In accordance with Mass General Law, Chapter 39, Section 15, whenever a two-thirds vote is required by statute, the moderator may declare a vote without count and record it as such by the clerk, and upon such declaration, provided, however, that if 7 or more voting members of town meeting doubt the vote, a counted vote will be taken. This is in accordance with Article 12 of the October 27, 2003 town meeting, and it was approved by the Attorney General on November 21st of 2003. Now, if we do have to take a counted vote, you must be in your seat to be counted. I will ask you to hold up your cards. I would ask that you hold them up over your head, not in front of your chest, because it's difficult for the tellers to see them, and do not put them down until the tellers have told you that they have taken care of counting your row. The warrant, which was duly posted in every precinct, is the agenda for town meeting, and town meeting does not come to an end until all agenda items have been acted on. I will ask for a motion for each article. You should listen carefully to the motion. We put the motions up on the screen for you to see so that it's in front of you. I will ask for a second, and then I will ask the proponent to speak to it, and then we will be open to debate and for speakers. I would ask that anyone who wishes to speak to come down to the microphones that are in the middle of the aisle. I would ask that no more than 2 people come to the microphone at one time. That is both for fire rules and to keep the aisles clear. Now, following the motion, debate will be open. Please clearly state your name, and please please shut your cell phones off. Keep in mind that debate is limited to what the subject matter is in the article. You should direct your discussion through the moderator. I ask that you're civil and respectful, that there'll be no calling out, there'll be no applause, no rude behavior, and if anyone does persist in rude behavior, the moderator does have the ability to ask you to take a seat or leave. Now, if someone is speaking, I will not interrupt them, and I will let them finish the sentence that there is on. Now, traditionally in the past, this body has always supported that the proponent has 5 minutes to speak to the article, and every other speaker has 2 minutes. I would ask that you consider this tradition and that we vote on that at this time. All in favor of allowing the proponents to have 5 minutes and other speakers 2 minutes, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed? It passes unanimously. Now, amendments can be offered. They must be in writing. I do have some paper here. Please do not write it on your voting card. I will have somebody bring you a piece of paper and a pen if you need be. We need to have that amendment in writing so that the clerk has a record of it, and it's important that we do so. Now, reconsideration, a motion to reconsider it, can be approved by a simple majority. However, to bring up reconsideration, there are certain rules that we follow. It must be moved on the night that the article comes up. It must be made by a member who voted on the prevailing side. We have to have a second. It's debatable. And I will only permit reconsideration if there has been a hasty, ill-advised, and erroneous action, or if there is additional information that is brought forward that we were not aware of. Now, non-voters, we welcome you to attend. I want to make sure all our non-voters are here to my left. If there's anybody sitting out there and you're a non-voter, please come down and take a seat. If for some reason we have an emergency and we have to leave the auditorium and then we return, make sure you come in this door, and that's to ensure the integrity that we only have the voters coming back in and that we have on non-voters. Do not use the doors to the rear or the right. If you need to go to the ladies' room or men's room, please use the door on the left. I ask you to turn off your cell phones. There are no taping and no photography. This is a legislative body. However, we do have a policy that the press, if they want to take photos, they have to let the moderator know in advance, and they have. And we are taping for the town clerk's records, but other than that, there is no individual recording of this meeting. So before we begin, Article 2, Section 2.6 of the Charter states that all department heads must attend the sessions of each town meeting to be here to answer questions. So I will call a roll call of the department heads. Board of Health, Chief Assessing Officer, Community Development, Conservation, Council on Aging, Management Technology, EMS, Inspectional Services, Municipal Maintenance, Planning. I believe our planner is out of town and has been excused. Police Department, Harbor Master, Town Accountant, Collector, Librarian, Water Pollution Control, and I know our Town Clerk, who was not seated when we introduced everybody, our Town Clerk, Mary Ann Silver. We have time to start our annual meeting before we go into our special. I am going to explain to you a consent agenda. We are allowed to take certain articles out of the order in which they are in the warrant and put them into a consent agenda. These are routinely articles that come up year after year. They generally don't have any discussion, and we put them in, we act on them, and then they get pulled out of the normal rotation. So tonight we do have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I will go through them with you. For our consent agenda tonight, we have Article number 2 in the annual meeting, if you want to look at that. That is just reoccurring business that comes up every year. There is generally never any discussion on it. This article lets the town enter into contracts. It authorizes the town collector to enter into compensating balances. There are certain reports. No one has provided the moderator with any sense that they want to give a report tonight. And to expend interest from loan repayments from the septic loan program. And again, that's an annual article that comes up. If anyone wishes to take these out and put them back into rotation, you just need to let me know by saying hold. Article 4. Article 4 is a housekeeping article which authorizes the continuance of revolving funds which are set up by the town on an annual basis. The same amount as money is put in year after year. Article 12. Article 12 was for the expenditure of CPC funds, which was to be used for the Wareham Methodist Church exterior. However, there are a number of towns who have entered into some litigation, and because that court case has not been settled, and they are challenging the legality, it's been recommended to the town of Wareham that we not move forward with that article tonight until those cases have been settled. Article 14. Article 14 was an article in which the makeup of the Finance Committee was proposing to change the terms of that committee, and the Finance Committee has decided that they will withdraw that article. Article number 16 was a petitioned article, and the petitioner requested that this article be withdrawn. So hearing no holds on any of those, I will now ask for a motion on the consent agenda. Dominic?
I make a motion that for the consent agenda for 2, 4, 12, 14, and 16.
We have a motion on the floor to vote on the consent agenda by voting favorably on Articles 2 and 4 as printed in the warrant, and indefinitely postponing Articles 12, 14, and 16. This requires a majority vote. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed? It passes. Normally, after the consent agenda and in the annual meeting, we go into and allow Mr. Dutch from Upper Cape Regional to present his budget. Mr. Dutch, would you like to take that up? We may be able to get through it before the special. I believe this would be Article 9.
Good evening.
May I have a motion on Article 9, please?
Article 9, I move that the town vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $3,422,296 to pay for the FY19 Upper Cape Cod Regional Technical School assessment.
Do I have a second? Second. I have a motion and a second. To speak to the article, Mr. Dutch?
Yes, I've provided some slides to speak a little bit about our budget, to give you some idea as to where the funds go on an annual basis. So this first slide, which is a little bit blurry, identifies for you that of our total gross budget, only 59.78%, nearly 60%, goes to instruction. You've got another 4.85 or 5% going to administration, 4.27% going to administration, and then you've got the balance, 31% going to operations and maintenance and fixed charges. These are costs that are often not associated with a school district, particularly the 20.06%. Those are costs that Upper Cape Tech has to include in their school budget, and these things include health insurance, snow removal, maintenance of buildings, insurance on buildings and students, so some fairly significant costs that you see. That bottom pie chart represents where the dollars go for the increase in our budget this year. And you can see that 48% is going to fixed charges. We're all experiencing the challenges of health insurance, with a 6% increase in our health insurance costs this year. That eats a significant portion of a budget that's gone up 3%. So 50% nearly of our increase is going to fixed charges that include health insurance. If we continue this on a year after year basis, obviously we're eroding what we can spend on education and students. If you could go to the next slide, please. The next slide gives you a little bit of an analysis over a 5-year period, and the red is the assessments to the towns, all 5 towns combined. Over that 5-year period, you can see a fairly steady incremental increase. If you look at the blue, which is state aid, you see a very minor increase from year to year, approximately $25 to $50 per student. One of the things that often occurs inaccurately is trying to compare Upper Cape Tech to a local school district. And it's really like comparing apples to oranges. I've provided an information sheet on your way in that hopefully many of you have grabbed to just turn off.
Is there a button on the side that maybe?
There we go. that shows you where some of the dollars go as well, and some of the things to consider that make a regional technical school unique. It's a battery. There we go.
Just a minute, Mr. Dutch, may I interrupt you? Ma'am, if you could go around and come in the other side, please.
The other piece of making a comparison is to, okay. The next slide, if you could, shows the changes in enrollment. This is only at the high school, and you can see what's happening to enrollment over a 10-year period from 2007 to 2018. Upper Cape Tech has had an 18.2% increase in enrollment. If you look at the budget increase, you're also seeing an increase in enrollment, in budget about the same over that period of time. This year, there are 266 students from the town of Wareham at Upper Cape Tech. If I could show you the last slide. This is the data sheet that comes from the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. It identifies the required contribution as based on the percentage that Upper Cape represents of Wareham's students. So you can see in 2017, it was 11.39%. This year, it's 12.47%. And those numbers at the bottom that you can't see, but I'll read them to you. They indicate the minimum increase in required contribution. So this year, the state has determined that the increase that's required from the town of Wareham for Upper Cape Tech is $273,752. The increase that Wareham is being asked for by Upper Cape Tech is $280,474, which is $7,000 more than the minimum required contribution. $7,000 is the only discretionary fund that exists in the assessment to the town of Wareham. I wanted to share with you, for those who have had an opportunity, if you've gone by the police station in the last few days, you see that their handicap ramp has been taken out and a new ramp is being installed. Upper Cape Tech students have taken the ramp out and are installing a new ramp for the town of Wareham's police department. They do that at no cost to the town. The value of that, if you were to have someone come in and do that work, is at least $15,000. So certainly what we're asking for compared to what we provide beyond the education is certainly reasonable and provides a benefit to the town of Wareham. So I thank you for your time. I thank you for your support, and through the chair, if anyone has questions.
May I have the vote and recommendation of the Board of Selectmen?
Board of Selectmen voted favorable or recommended. Yeah.
You might have to
Hello.
turn. Yeah.
Can you hear that better? Hello. Board of Selectmen voted 4-0-0.
May I have the vote and recommendation of the Finance Committee?
Finance Committee recommends approval 601.
Bring those microphones right up as close as can be.
We recommend you approve this 601.
Thank you. Is there anything further to be said on Article 9? Seeing no one standing, I will call for a vote. You are now voting on the Upper Cape Cod Regional Vocational Technical School District budget and appropriate the sum of $3,422,296. This requires a majority vote. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed? It is unanimous. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a special town meeting which is slated for 7:30. We only have 2 minutes. I'll try pulling one, or let's see what one it
You
is.
don't have an alarm set for 7:30.
17.
Article number 17.
Article number 17, commercial agricultural regulations. A motion to see if the town will add the following aquacultural regulations to the town of Wareham shellfish regulations, section 4, general commercial regulations, as printed in the warrant.
Do I hear a second? Okay. We are approaching 7:30, so we are going to call a recess of our annual town meeting. When we come back, we will come back to Article 17. So we will now go to the special town meeting warrant. I will ask the clerk to read the posting.
Commonwealth of Massachusetts, Plymouth, SS. To either of the constables of the town of Wareham, greetings. In the name of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, you are hereby directed to notify and warn the legal voters of the town, qualified to vote in town affairs, to meet in the Wareham High School Auditorium, Viking Drive, Wareham, Mass., on Monday, April 23rd, 2018, at 7:30 p.m., to act on the following articles.
I will waive the reading of the special town warrant.
Given under our hands this 20th day of March in the year 2018, Wareham Board of Selectmen.
Thank you. All of the same rules apply to our special town meeting that apply to our annual town meeting. Again, we pull the articles by lottery.
Article 17.
Article 17 in the special. Article 17.
Article 17, excuse me, the Stretch Energy Code. I move as printed in the planning board handout to approve this article.
Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. We have Article 17 before us. To speak to Article 17, Mr. Barrett.
George Barrett, Chairman of the Planning Board. We did hold a public hearing on this article on February 26 and recommended favorable action 4-0-0.
To speak to the article.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. This article proposes adoption of the state's highest building energy code. On its own, this article ensures that all new homes, and that's a stress, all new residential homes meet the latest energy code standards starting July 1 of this year. This will promote energy-efficient building construction that drives the market for better built and lower-cost new homes. Importantly, this will not apply to renovations or additions to existing homes. Adoption of this code will also benefit the town by meeting one of the criteria for becoming a green community. Under this state program, designation as a green community provides financial benefits and technical assistance that will provide access to grants for clean energy and affordable energy projects that also cut municipal energy costs. Just as an example, if we were to become a green community, our first grant, and that's a non-competitive grant, would be approximately $190,000. Thereafter, we'd be eligible for annual incentives. Thank you.
May I have the vote and recommendation of the Board of Selectmen?
Yep, Board of Selectmen voted 4-0-0.
May I have the vote and recommendation of the Finance Committee?
The Finance Committee recommends approval 7-0-0.
Thank you. Is there anything further to be said on Article 17? Seeing no one standing, I will now call for a vote. This is a bylaw. It requires a majority vote. We are voting on the Stretch Energy Code, Article 17, as printed in the Planning Board handout. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed? It passes by a majority. Article 13.
Article 13, replace all of the Article 13 zoning protection bylaw of the zoning. I move as printed in the Planning Board handout.
Because this is a zoning article, we need a report from the Planning Board.
George Barrett, Chairman of the Planning Board. We held a public hearing on this on February 12th and from Article 13 and voted favorable action 400.
Thank you. To speak on Article 13? Let's give the town administrator 1 minute to come back. On my right?
Wareham Building Commissioner Dave Requena. Article 13 was amended because of issues that we see often in our office. Article 13 speaks to non-conforming uses and structures, and how it's written now is just a little vague, so we have a lot of cases that end up going to the Zoning Board of Appeals, and in order to avoid that and make the process a little bit easier and a little bit more streamlined for all of the residents and the applicants, it has been rewritten just to basically better clarify what was in the bylaw. We haven't really changed much, we just tried to clarify the information that was in the bylaw currently.
Thank you. May I have the vote and recommendation of the Board of Selectmen?
Board of Selectmen voted to recommend 400.
May I have the vote and recommendation of the Finance Committee?
Finance Committee recommends approval 700.
Thank you. Is there anything further to be said on Article 13? Seeing no one standing, I will call for a vote. This is a zoning bylaw. It does require a 2/3 vote. I will try for unanimous. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed? It is unanimous. Article number 9.
Article number 9, solar pilots. I move as printed in the warrant.
To speak to Article 9?
Thank you, Madam Moderator. This actually creates 4 solar pilots for the Blue Wave Solar Project, which is the one off of Charge Pond Road. This sets what we would receive for pilot payments and would set it for the next 20 years. Thank you.
May I have the vote of the Board of Selectmen?
Board of Selectmen voted 400 to recommend.
May I have the vote and recommendation of the Finance Committee?
The Finance Committee recommends approval 700.
Is there anything further to be said on Article 9? Seeing no one standing, I will call for a vote. This requires a majority vote. You are voting on the solar pilot as printed in your warrant. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? It is unanimous.
Article 12.
Article 12.
Article 12, definition of horses and stables. I move that the town amend use definition, Article 3, Section 340, subsection 340.2, riding stables as followed. Remove 340.2, animal-related uses, riding stables, any structure and/or land used for the maintenance or rental of horses, mules, ponies, donkeys, either with or without a bridle, path, or riding area. but excluding structures and/or land use for the maintenance of horses and the like use exclusively for agricultural purpose. And insert 340.2, animal-related uses, riding stables, any structure and/or land use for the stable where horses, ponies, mules, or donkeys are maintained and kept for hire. This shall include the renting of horses, ponies, mules, or donkeys for rides, drives, or trail rides, including their use as part of a camp or ranch activities, and the use of these animals for hay rides or pony rides.
May I have the vote, may I have a second?
Second.
Have a second. May I have the vote of the Board of Selectmen?
The Board of Selectmen voted to recommend 400.
May I have the vote and recommendation of the Finance Committee?
The Finance Committee recommends approval, 700.
Mr. Barrett?
Planning Board held a public hearing on February 12th and voted 400 to support. And what this seeks to do is replace our existing definition with that of state statute.
Thank you. Is there anything further to be said? Gentleman on my right? No? Seeing no one standing, I will now call for a vote on Article 12, which is to remove a Section 340.2 and insert Section 340.2 with a new definition. This does require a 2/3 vote because it is a zoning article. I will try for unanimous. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed? It is unanimous.
Article 2.
Article 2.
Article 2, fund the parking program. I move that the town transfer $80,000 from the receipts reserved for appropriation onto their account to fund the parking program.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Have a second. May I have the vote of the Board of Selectmen?
Board of Selectmen voted 400 to recommend.
May I have the vote and recommendation of the Finance Committee?
The Finance Committee recommends approval, 700.
To speak to the article?
Thank you. This article seeks to transfer $80,000 from the receipts reserved appropriation onset pier account to fund the parking program. If you remember in the fall town meeting, we reestablished these funds. If we had not done that, it would have gone to the general fund. There is currently $296,922.49 in the account, which would, the transfer of $80,000 out would leave us with $216,922.49.
Thank you. Gentleman on my left?
Good evening. Mark Longi of Onset, and I would
Please stand up really close to the microphone.
step down. Hello? Is that better? So I'm a resident of Onset, and this fund is from the income from parking meters and from parking stickers that, as a resident, we have to pay for in Onset. And I would like to see the money stay in Onset. Wareham does not have a parking permit or program, so I'd like to see that money stay in town and not get distributed.
Thank you. On my right?
Good evening, Lisa Morales, Precinct 2. At this exact venue last time around, I asked the administrator whether or not this money stayed in Onset. He stated yes, it does. But we have since found that this is not just the pier, it's the pier and the stickers, and this money is distributed 25% up to $45,000 to the community events program, not all of which takes place in Onset, not all of which is even requested for Onset. And in their annual statement, they say Wareham and Onset, so they specify outside of Onset. So we would like to see this tabled until such time as we can establish that the monies are actually going where they're supposed to go. I've also found since then that this is not supposed to be used to pay salaries, and the town administrator did state at the last town meeting that it's used to pay salaries. So the request is to table this and send it back until we have further information, which has been requested through a Freedom of Information Act, which has not been produced yet. Thank you.
Are you making a motion?
I would move that we table this until further information is available from the town accountant, treasurer, or whomever else needs to share that information with us.
Mrs. Morales, there's a difference between tabling and indefinite postponement. I think what you're looking for is that, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but to table something, we lay it on the table and then take it off the table at some point during this meeting. And I'm not sure that's exactly what you're looking for. Can you clarify for me? And I do need to have your motion in writing.
We would ask that it be indefinitely postponed, pending further information.
Okay. I need that in writing, please.
Okay.
We have before us a motion for indefinite postponement. Do I have a second? Have a second? She's sitting down front. Joe? We have an amendment to Article 2, which is to fund the parking program. The amendment is for indefinite postponement. Is there anyone who wishes to speak to the amendment of indefinite postponement?
I wasn't asked a question.
Seeing none,
Madam Moderator?
Mr. Titlebaum?
I do have a question for the town administrator. Could you explain exactly how this funding is set up, what the money goes to, and how this is accomplished and how this has been done over time?
Thank you. This is a receipts reserved for appropriation account. The kiosk money goes into it. Then you have a separate parking plan, which is the stickers. The onset resident stickers through today's date have produced $1,835. That's been posted into the account. So asking whether, the question that I had received was whether the monies that we spend are spent in onset, not if the special legislation that this town revoted in 2014 after the parking program, including the onset resident sticker, was established. So the Community Events Fund was not only voted once, but twice by this community.
Thank you, and that's the information I was looking for. The Community Events Committee was established by this body in 2008. The funding source at that time was, in fact, I believe, a combination of parking and meals tax or hotel tax. I forget which of the latter two. In 2014, once we discovered that the original 2008 appropriation had actually only been for 1 year, we cured that defect by making it a permanent allocation by this body voting to petition the legislature for a special act so that we could once again repurpose those monies for the Community Events Committee. I find it ironic that people are complaining that the Community Events Committee is being funded with this money when I would have to guess off the top of my head that over the past 8 or 9 years, probably somewhere between 80 and 90% of that money has gone to fund events and onset. So I'd urge you to defeat this amendment.
Is there anything further to be said on the amendment? On the right?
Patty Neal, Onset, Mass. I am against this because if you do not vote for anything tonight, there will be no program this summer. So there will be no money next year to do anything. Onset gets their streets swept, that comes from it. The salaries for the street sweepers are not paid from this fund. This fund does cover seasonal officers that are in onset. It does not cover the harbor masters, gentlemen that go out and go to Little Harbor and such. It is strictly, that part of it is strictly for onset. We're fortunate enough to have this. Yes, the residents do pay. What they pay is for the privilege to park in front of their own residences so that when they go grocery shopping, they can come home and have a place to park. It doesn't It's not like it's a free parking thing, and it's not for all onset. It's for those that live in the village, and the village does benefit for it. I think if we postpone this, then the residents are going to be upset because the streets are not going to be swept. There's not going to be any enforcement officers on the street, so that when you have your sticker to park in front of your house, you're not able to do so. So it's something that we need to take into consideration.
Thank you. Mr. Camerano?
I think what people need to realize is that Onset is a part of Wareham. We are all one. Thank you.
On my right. Ladies and gentlemen, hold that, please.
Barbara Smith, I live in Onset also. I'd like to know why you have to fund the parking program. I mean, I'm paying, as somebody said, to park in front of my house. Come on. I can see why somebody from out of town might have to pay, but why do I have to pay for where I live, to park where I live? But again, what are we funding with the parking program? That's what I'd like to know.
To answer the question only.
It funds the seasonal staff. It also funds what we put in last year was the trash cans in Onset, also the cleaning of those. So far, you also do some of the street cleaning. We do street sweeping through there. And then you have, obviously, the community events and some of the other items.
Do you clean the streets in Wareham also with that money?
We do. Unfortunately, sometimes, and a lot of years, we've not been able to get every street in Wareham, but through the parking program, we make sure that we do every street in Onset, and it's actually beyond the limits of just the village. So it does go beyond the village.
How many times a year do you sweep?
Usually every spring. Yeah, spring.
On my left.
My husband and I have owned...
Please identify yourself.
Donna Fox Rubin, Precinct 5. My husband and I have owned homes in both Onset and Wareham. And as a current resident of Wareham, I perceive the Onset resident sticker as unfair to the residents of Wareham. Where we are one town, if you buy a home in Onset, especially in Onset Village, fully aware that you don't have parking in a driveway near your home, and you choose to purchase that home, it seems to me you've made an informed decision of the consequences for your parking. So when I go into Onset Village and a resident is allowed to pay for a permit to park there, why can't I, as a resident of Wareham, if I so choose, similarly purchase a parking sticker so that I can park in areas of the village?
On my left.
Marie Strawn, Precinct 2. I live in Onset, and that sticker doesn't give me anything. I can't park in front of my house. If I go out on a weekend to go shopping, when I come back, it's filled with illegal parkers. It doesn't guarantee me that I can park within a quarter mile of my house on days that there are festivals. There's nothing I get from this sticker as far as I'm concerned.
Thank you. Is there anything further to be said on the amendment for Article 2? Seeing no one, we now have before us an amendment for indefinite postponement of Article 2. So you're voting on the amendment. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed? No. The amendment fails. We are now back to the original Article 2. Is there anything further to be said on Article 2 as it is before you? Seeing no one standing, I will call for a vote on Article 2. This requires a majority vote to transfer $80,000 from receipts reserved for appropriation on Superior account to fund the parking program. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye. Aye.
All those opposed? It passes by a majority. Article 1.
Article 1, budget transfers. I move that the town approve the following transfers within the budget lines as approved in Article 7 of the spring annual town meeting. They're printed on the board. Thank you.
Do I have a second? I have a second. To speak to Article 1?
Thank you. This article does the transfers within the already allocated budget for FY18. We are allowed now to do this at the end of the fiscal year with the selectmen and the finance committee, but we thought to bring this to town meeting just to let them know what's going on with our budgets. So the first item, if you see, it'll be A from selectmen salaries, and then it goes over in the amount of $14,202 over to and spread out across 3 different lines, which is town accountant, treasurer, and town clerk salaries in the amount of respectively $3,050, $1,770, and $9,382. The next transfer is MIS salaries, which is $10,000 to the MIS expense line, and the same amount. The next transfer is inspectional services expenses to the salaries in the amount of $17,645. The next transfer is the Board of Health salaries in the amount of $10,000, and the health line $22,000 to the police salary line in the amount of $32,000. And the final transfer E would be from the administration salaries $3,500 to personnel services $3,500. The total amount of the transfers is $77,347. Thank you.
Thank you. May I have the vote of the Board of Selectmen? I don't think they heard you.
Board of Selectmen voted 5-0-0 to recommend.
May I have the vote and recommendation of the Finance Committee?
The Finance Committee recommends approval, 8-0-0.
Thank you. Is there anything further to be said on Article 1, budget transfers?
I just wanted to point out, Madam Moderator, where it says selectmen salaries don't go to us, they go to the office. We don't get squat.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Is there anything further to be said on Article 1? Nope. Okay. Seeing no one standing, I now will call for a vote on Article 1, which are budget transfers. The numbers are on the screen. We are voting as it appears on the screen. It requires a majority vote. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed? It is unanimous. Article 8.
Article 8, restoration of Tremont Nail Freight Building. I move as printed in the warrant at the sum of $200,000.
Have a second?
Second.
Have a second. To speak to Article 8?
Thank you. And I actually think this is it's a great report from the Finance Committee, not that they always aren't, but that's what I'm going to read out if you don't mind. So Ellis, I'm going to steal some of your thunder here. The Finance Committee reviewed a master plan for this project and spoken with the representatives of the Community Preservation Committee and the Town Planning Department. The majority of the Finance Committee believe that investments made by community preservation in conjunction with money from mass development will eventually create a desirable parcel that will attract private business, private investment, and repurpose and preserve the Tremont Nail property. To provide a little history, the town of Wareham bought the Tremont Nail Complex in 2004, and 2 years later, in 2006, the company moved to Mansfield, Massachusetts, after being acquired by Acorn Manufacturing. We're dealing with decisions made in previous era. The Finance Committee recognizes the town has spent significant sum of money on the site over the last decade, creating some skepticism and continuing investment. Although these are valid concerns, the majority of the Finance Committee believes that the property will only attract a buyer or investor with the active participation, planning, and financial commitment outlined in Article 8. The town has an obligation to maintain the structures if they are not repurposed. Money from the community preservation includes state matching funds, is not available to fund projects or operations outside of community preservation. Thank you, Jim. And
Thank
Pat.
you. May I have the report of the Board of Selectmen?
Board of Selectmen voted 4-0-0.
May I have the vote and recommendation of the Finance Committee?
The Finance Committee recommends approval 610.
Is there anything further to be said on Article 8? Seeing no one standing, I will call for a vote. The vote is, as printed in your warrant, at the sum of $200,000 for the restoration of Tremont Neal Freight Building. Requires a majority vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? No. Passes by a majority. Article 4.
Article 4, excuse me, transfer of free cash. I move that the town transfer $275,000 from certified free cash to fund FY18 snow and ice deficit $200,000, Wareham Recycle Center $25,000, emergency management $50,000, for a total of $275,000.
May I have a second?
Second.
I have a second to speak to Article 4.
Thank you. The snow and ice deficit, that's the only line allowed in the budget that's allowed to go into deficit spending, and that's why it's set up this way. The Wareham Recycling Center, they've come before us before to continue their operations, and speaking with them, in this amount, this could get us about 5.5 years of their operation. They are a significant asset to the community. And the last one is, you know, we've seen this over the last couple storms, especially the last big nor'easter. We took out, and I think about 2012, the emergency management from the budget, and there's been nothing set aside. So we're looking to set aside $50,000 worth of funds, not only to have funds to hit during storms and if there's major issues, but also we'd like to use this for grant purposes, because you're often required 10% matching funds. And we're looking at really bringing up our emergency management and having that reestablished. We've also been using and working with the districts on this, so it's been a collaborative effort. So thank you very much.
Thank you. May I have the vote of the Board of Selectmen?
Board of Selectmen voted 4-0-0 to recommend.
May I have the vote and recommendation of the Finance Committee?
The Finance Committee recommends approval 700.
Thank you. Is there anything to be said on Article 4? Seeing no one standing, I will now call for a vote on Article 4, which is a transfer of free cash to transfer $275,000 from free cash to fund the following line items that you have before you. This requires a majority vote. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed? It passes by majority. Article 20.
Article 20, amend Community Events Committee bylaws. I move to approve as written in the warrant.
I have a second.
Second.
I have a second. To speak to Article 20? Mr. Slavin?
This just basically changes the makeup of the committee. We had one particular member listed, which doesn't exist anymore as far as the position, so we're going to 3 at-large positions. That's all it is.
Thank you. May I have the vote of the Board of Selectmen?
Board of Selectmen voted 3-0-1.
May I have the vote and recommendation of the Finance Committee?
The Finance Committee recommends approval 700.
Thank you. Is there anything further to be said on Article 20? Seeing no one standing, I will call for a vote. This requires a simple majority to amend the community events bylaw as you have it in your warrant. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? It is unanimous. Article 14.
Article 14, amend the zoning bylaws, Article 14, administration. I move as printed in the planning board handout.
I have a second?
Second.
To speak to Article 14. Actually, Mr. Barrett, a report.
Yes, George Barrett, Chairman of the Planning Board. We did hold a public hearing on this article on February 12th and voted 4-0-0 for favorable action.
Thank you. On my right,
Wareham Building Commissioner Dave Requena. Article 14, administration, we just added one definition for variances, which we currently don't have that in the bylaw, so it's basically, again, it was just to add clarity, so if anybody had any questions, it was in the bylaw, they can read it, they can read exactly what it is and what's attached to it, and what's required to get a variance.
thank you. I have the vote of the Board of Selectmen.
The Board of Selectmen voted 4-0-0 to recommend.
May I have the vote and recommendation of the Finance Committee?
The Finance Committee recommends approval, 7-0-0.
Is there anything further to be said on Article 14? Seeing no one standing, I will call for a vote. Again, this is a zoning bylaw. It does require a 2/3 vote. I will try for unanimous. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed? It is unanimous. Article 5.
Article 5, to return the unused funds from the capital project. I'm sorry, return unused funds from the completed projects. I move to approve as printed in the warrant.
I have a second? I have a second. To speak to Article 5?
These projects noted have been completed and closed. Unexpended funds need to be returned to the community preservation funds. Thank you.
Thank you. May I have the vote of the Board of Selectmen?
Board of Selectmen voted to recommend 4-0-0.
May I have the vote and recommendation of the Finance Committee?
The Finance Committee recommends approval, 7-0-0.
Thank you. Is there anything further to be said on Article 5? If not, I will call for the vote. The vote on Article 5 is to return unused funds from a completed project. This requires a majority vote. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed? It is unanimous. Article 19.
Article 19, the PEG access receipts to Wareham Community TV. I move to transfer the sum of $250,669.95 from the PEG access receipts reserved for the appropriation account to Wareham Community TV.
Do I have a second? To speak to the article?
Thank you. These are, we established this fund in the fall, and this was because of the Municipal Modernization Act. Before, these funds flowed directly to WCTV. Now it requires for them to be transferred out by town meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. May I have the vote of the Board of Selectmen?
Board of Selectmen voted to recommend 4-0-0.
May I have the vote and recommendation of the Finance Committee?
The Finance Committee votes 7-0-0 to recommend approval.
Thank you. Is there anything further to be said on Article 19? Seeing no one standing, I will call for a vote on Article 19, which is your PEG access receipts to Wareham Community TV, and to transfer the sum of $250,669.95 from the PEG access receipts to Wareham Community TV. This requires a majority vote. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Passes by majority. Article 16.
Article 15, Amend the zoning bylaws, Article 3, use regulations. I move as printed in the planning board handout.
That's Article 6.
Mr. Barrett?
I guess point of order at first, we are in a position to act on most of this article.
Oh, Article 16 was in the consent, wasn't it?
No, that was for the annual town meeting, not
Oh, all
the
right,
special.
okay.
Madam Moderator, there was originally thought that they were going to pass over. There are other actions that they can take which make sense outside of one definition, so they're going to have to do a little bit of change and give you the motion.
Okay, okay, so, Mr. Barrett, I assume that you have an amendment to this then?
I do.
You can make a main motion?
Yeah, it's here somewhere. I move to approve Article 16 as printed in the planning board handout, except the definition of lot and the related text on page 10 is not included.
Do I have a second?
Second.
We did, oh,
Mr. Barrett?
we did hold a public hearing on this article on February 12th and voted 4-0-0 to support. But since then, there's been some confusion over the definition that we've asked you to remove.
So, Mr. Barrett, your motion would be that I move to approve Article 16 as printed in the planning board handout, except the definition of lot and related text on page 10 will not be included.
Correct.
And second?
Second.
To speak to Article 16?
Wareham Building Commissioner David Requena. Article 16 is just a clarification of existing use definitions, non-conforming structure, non-conforming lot. And then we have added some extra text to bring these definitions into better conformance with state regulations. And we clarified, we expanded the one definition of lot, but that is being removed, and everything else is just better clarification.
Thank you. Mr. Barrett, you did say that the planning board had a hearing. We're not sure that we heard that. I just want to double check.
Yes, you did. The 12th.
That's what I thought. Okay. Thank you. I thought so. I just wanted to be certain for legal reasons. Is there anything further to be said on Article 16? Seeing no one standing, I will call for a vote on the motion as presented by Mr. Barrett. So what you're voting on is to approve Article 16 as printed in the planning board handout, except the definition of lot and related text on page 10 will not be included. This requires a 2/3 vote because it is a zoning change. I will try for unanimous. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed? It is unanimous. Yeah, that was the main motion. Article 10.
Article 10, authorized borrowing. That's a very lengthy article. I'll have you read it on the board.
Dominic, do you want to have someone else read it, or?
If you want, I'll read it. I just...
Okay, I know
All right, here
your
we go.
throat is bothering
I
you.
move that the town appropriate $2,500,000 from the WPCF capital appropriations account. Transfer $2,500,000 from certified retained earnings, and further that $5 million is appropriated for the purpose of financing the lining and repair of the 21/18 sewer and scepter from Swifts Beach Road to the Narrows Pump Station, including planning, design, and engineering, and including without limitations all costs thereof as defined in Section 1 of Chapter 29C of the General Law. That to meet this appropriation, the treasurer, with the approval of the Board of Selectmen, is authorized to borrow $5 million and issue bond or notes, therefore, under Chapter 44 of the General Law and/or Chapter 29C of the General Law, that any premium received by the town upon the sale of any bond or notes approved by this vote, less any such premium applied to the payment of the cost of insurance of such bonds or notes, may be applied to the payment of the cost approved by this vote in accordance with Chapter 44, Section 20 of the General Law, thereby reducing the amount authorized to be borrowed to pay such cost by the like amount, that such bonds or notes shall be general obligation of the town unless the treasurer, with the approval of the Board of Selectmen, determines that they should be issued as limited obligations and may be secured by local systems revenues as defined in Section 1 of Chapter 29C. That the treasurer, with the approval of the Board of Selectmen, is authorized to borrow all or a portion of such amount from the Massachusetts Clean Water Trust, parentheses, the trust, established persistent to Chapter 29C, and in connection therewith to enter into a loan agreement and/or security agreement with the trust, and otherwise to contract with the trust and the Department of Environmental Protection with respect to such loan and for any federal or state aid available for the project and for the financing thereof, and that the Board of Selectmen is authorized to enter into a project regulatory agreement with the Department of Environmental Protection to expend all funds available to the project and to take any other action necessary to carry out the project.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
A second. To speak to Article 10?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chairman. Oops. Okay, I'm Jim Gibberti, Chairman of the Sewer Commissioners, and we're looking for authorization, obviously, to borrow that $5 million. We're going to fund the other $5 million out of retained earnings and capital. I would like to request that the time I have to speak relinquished over to Chris Cronin from Beta Engineering, and he can probably explain this whole project better than I can and answer any questions that may arise.
Thank you, Mr. Gibberti. Mr. Gibberti would like to relinquish his time to the consultant for this project so that he can explain the project to us. All those in favor of allowing the consultant the courtesy of the floor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Go ahead.
Good evening. My name is Chris Cronin. I'm an engineer with Beta Engineering. Matt, if you could just go to the next slide. So, excuse me, we're under contract with the Water Pollution Control Department, conducting an infiltration and inflow study. And through the course of that work, we did some inspection of a segment of sewer. It's 1.7 miles of sewer in between Swifts Beach Road and Merchants Way. The pipe ranges in size from 18 inches to 21 inches. It was constructed in the 1970s, and the interceptor borders an environmentally sensitive area. Next slide. So, can't see that. So, the highlighted green section is the sewer that I'm here to speak about. As you can see, the pipe system receives flow from 5 pumping stations within the town. And as you can see, it kind of borders the salt marsh area there to the north, and flows to the Narrows Road pumping station before being conveyed to the wastewater treatment facility. Next slide, please. So what we found, looking at the closed-circuit television inspection video, is a pipe that is not in great condition. We've areas of spalling concrete, exposed reinforcing, infiltration at joints and services, and some root intrusion. Next slide, please. So just to take each issue at a time, the spalling concrete and the exposed reinforcing, what's causing this? Well, for the most part, at each discharge of the pumping station into the interceptor, is turbulent flow. And when it enters the interceptor, there's a release of hydrogen sulfide. And that hydrogen sulfide is attacking the concrete and corroding the reinforcing. Next slide, please. Here's a picture of what that pipe looks like on High Street. Now, basically what's happening is you're seeing a deterioration in that pipe wall thickness. This is extreme condition right here. And, you know, although I wouldn't dare to predict when failure might occur, but it could be soon. So, next slide, please. Here's another shot of, you can see, you shouldn't see any of this reinforcing on the pipe. You should just see a concrete surface here. So you can see that the concrete surface has been worn away, and you see some exposed reinforcing, which is starting to exhibit that brown rusting color. Okay, so other issues that we found were infiltration at joints. When we have infiltration, you sometimes think, well, maybe there's exfiltration happening too at certain points, and roots at joints. So what causes this? Well, it's a high groundwater table right there along that salt marsh there. The groundwater is very, well, it's at the surface. And so because the pipe is aging, you see some joint deterioration, and now that groundwater is being allowed into the pipe system. Poor construction can also be a source of that. So with that infiltration, you're robbing capacity of your pumping stations, you're robbing capacity of your collection system, you're treating clean water at your wastewater treatment facility. So here's a joint which is exhibiting some infiltration. That's a significant amount coming out there. Next slide. And here you start to see some of the roots. And you can see, if you look closely, you can see some of the aggregate of the concrete starting to be exposed in this one location. This is a pipe that's not in horrible condition, but compared to the picture that I showed previously of the reinforcing steel, that's yet to be exposed in this pipe, in this picture here.
You have about 10 seconds. Would you like a little extra time, and how much do you think you'd need?
I would like a little extra time. Time has gotten away from me. I apologize for that. Another 3 minutes?
I am going to grant you another 3 minutes. I think that it's imperative that the presentation be made, so I'll give you 3 minutes.
Thank you. So what can the town do? Well, the town can be proactive in their approach here and do some maintenance by rehabilitating the pipe system. We can do what's called a cured-in-place pipe system, where most of the work would be done at the roadway surface, and there'd be no need for excavation or disturbances from excavators and dewatering operations and excavation support. Next slide. So basically, you would do pipe segment, manhole to manhole. You set up a series of bypass pumping units to convey the flow around the area of work, and depending on which way the flow is coming in, you would need to plug it, set up your bypass pumps, and move the flow around the work, and then the lining company would come in, set up above the manhole, and work manhole to manhole, pulling in the liner, inflating it, and then curing it in place. Next slide, please. So the town also has the option to do nothing, which is not advisable. So what could happen? Well, you could see a pipe collapse. That's marked by that red X there. And when that pipe collapses, if it's in a road, you might lose the road. If it's in the salt marsh area, you see a big sinkhole, and then sewage starts to back up. Where does the sewage go? Well, it could go into basements, or it could come out on the surface of the ground, and because this is an environmentally sensitive area, it would go right to the estuary. And what does that mean? Well, it means extended shellfish bed closures, it means extended beach closures, it means emergency contract work, which can be expensive.
Got 1 more minute.
So we're trying to avoid what your neighbors experienced recently in Plymouth, catastrophic failure. The cost of that project is approaching 33, or is surpassing 33 million and counting.
Thank you. May I have the vote and recommendation of the Board of Selectmen?
Board of Selectmen voted favorable 4-0-0.
May I have the vote and recommendation of the Finance Committee?
Finance Committee recommends approval 8-0-0.
Thank you. Is there anything further to be said on Article 10? Seeing no one standing, I will call for a vote. Because this is a borrowing article, it does require a 2/3 vote. I will try for unanimous. The article before you is to authorize borrowing for the repair of the sewer lines. As it appears before you, I'm not going to go through and read it in its entirety, but what you're voting on is what is before you. It does require a 2/3 vote. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed? It is unanimous. Article 18.
Article 18, the shopping cart bylaw. I move as printed in the administration handout.
We have a second. Ladies and gentlemen, please, to speak to the article.
All right, so this has been an ongoing problem. I don't know if you've noticed, but if you drive around town, you'll see these shopping carts strewn here and there in ditches and so on. If you happen to take a walk out behind the Walmart, you'll find about 1,000 of them out there, all literally littering the woods. And we've tried, the Board of Health has tried, and everybody's tried to get them to rein them in and go and pick them up and, you know, take care of them and so on. And basically been very unsuccessful. So this article seeks to make them put in electronic wires so that they can't be taken off the property. And that way, that sort of eliminates the whole problem. And if you look at the thing, this has been done in other towns. Town council actually wrote this for us with the help of some of the things he found from other articles. I know there's some talk, a young lady's going to speak in a few minutes and say that this should have had a public hearing. Well, a bylaw doesn't need a public hearing. It's not a requirement. It's not a zoning bylaw. It's a bylaw. And this has got to stop now. I mean, it's been just going on way too far, and it's a real pain for the Board of Health who's trying to chase these things down, and this will eliminate all that.
Thank you. May I have the vote of the Board of Selectmen?
Board of Selectmen voted 4-0-0.
May I have the vote and recommendation of the Finance Committee?
Finance Committee recommends approval, 7-0-0.
Thank you. Is there anything further to be said on my right?
Yes, Sandy Slavin, Precinct 3, and yes, I'm going to say, why was there no public hearing on this? It's a bylaw change, I don't need it, but I'm sure a lot of you here today are seeing this for the very first time because it was really not publicly identified or shared with the public. I'm very concerned that to implement this, we need a police officer to tag the carts that are outside of property, or a health agent, or a building official. It's not clear if this will be retroactively implemented to all of our businesses that have carts, dollar store, liquor store. It isn't just the big box stores. I mean, there are probably, I was thinking, maybe 30 businesses in towns that would be required to put some type of restraint on their property to prevent their carts from leaving. But I can just see our police officer going out there and putting a tag on a shopping cart that's not on a property, and then having a $100 fine per day. I don't know who's going to implement that, or I would have preferred to have this brought out in the open and discussed in the public before brought here. I mean, I like the idea of controlling the carts, but I'm not sure how it's going to happen. It's not clear who puts the warrant, the violation tag on the cart. I mean, I have a lot of questions, and maybe someone can better answer how this is implemented, and what town did this come from?
To answer the question, Mr. Titlebaum, Town Council.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Through you, the previous speaker, just to address several of the questions that were posed. Number one, the issue of enforcement officer is under Section 1 definitions. Enforcement officer means any police officer or health agent or building official. The enforcement agency means the town department in which the enforcement officer is employed. Every business would be required to tag their carts. The enforcement persons identified in the bylaw would have the authority to cite the businesses for failure to retrieve their carts in a timely fashion. The fine can be found at Section 2, subsection C, which is on page 4 of the handout, where it says that the bylaw may be enforced by non-criminal disposition, or fines shall be assessed at $100 for each violation. Oh, and just to add, the question was, where did this come from? This was an amalgam of about a dozen different shopping cart bylaws and ordinances ranging from, I believe, London, Ontario, all the way to Long Beach, California.
Does that answer your question, Mrs. Slavin?
I just have a problem with my police officers out there putting tags on shopping carts. We can use those officers for better means in this town. I'm just concerned that we're going to be putting administrative cost to, say, tagging a cart. Now, I went behind the old
10
Walmart.
seconds.
I didn't see thousands of carts. I saw a dozen. Thank you.
Selectman Titlebaum?
Yeah, I'd urge passage of this. If you go to just about any other town in the state, eventually if you hang around a Stop and Shop long enough, you'll see a pickup truck pull up. And what do you see in the back of the pickup truck? There's 10 or 15 shopping carts. And the reason they're out there collecting the carts is twofold. One is carts are kind of expensive. But the second thing is they have a fine mechanism so that once the store is notified, that they've got a shopping cart sitting on some street corner, they've got to go grab the thing within 24 hours, or whatever their particular bylaw specifies, or they get a fine. I can tell you that during the town cleanups, Selectman Bruce, one year, found a shopping cart that was actually in the woods. It actually had to be cut out by machete because the vines had grown through the things. Now, I'm not knowledgeable as to hundreds of them behind Walmarts, but I am fairly knowledgeable about plenty of these things. You know, people go to stores, they might ride the bus to the store, they go shopping, they wheel the thing home because they can't get all their parcels on the bus or their bags on the bus, and then the shopping cart just languishes out there. This will put the onus on the people who provide shopping carts for their customers to go out and periodically collect them. Yes, it's a little bit of an added business expense, but the idea here isn't to have the police ignoring stabbings and domestic violence calls to go out and tag shopping carts. It does give them some enforcement ability when they're out and see one, and they can ticket it, just like we have police officers out there issuing parking tickets and speeding tickets. It's just another tool in the arsenal to try to clean the town up. So I would urge passage of this. Like any bylaw we do pass, if we do pass it and we find there are some issues in the future, we can always come back to this body and fix it.
Thank you. On my left.
I watched the selectmen's meeting the night, Patrick, you
Can you
mentioned.
identify yourself, please?
Oh, I'm sorry, Nancy Miller from Onset. The night you brought this up, and to see it already as an article at town meeting is rather quick. I do want to ask through you, Madam Moderator, when did the selectmen meet with the store owners or the managers in order to discuss this issue with them prior to making this kind of draconian article? Because, I mean, how many town meetings did it take to make a dog bylaw? It was a long time. Everybody had committees and on and on. There's other options than bringing a hammer down on their head. My son used to be the manager at Walmart, and he had an employee that once a week went out into the back and gathered all the carts. It's a problem, yes. But you want to be proactive, and you want to work with the stores, and finding them for a cart laying along the side of the street is probably not the way to do it.
On my right.
Mike Flaherty, Precinct 1. I feel compelled by Ms. Slavin's testimony to move, what's the term you use, future study.
You wish to make an amendment, Mr. Flaherty?
Yes, I'd like to move this to future study.
Second. So you're looking to make indefinite postponement?
Yes, ma'am.
I need that in writing.
Where, do I go up there?
It's okay, Mr. Flaherty, he'll come to you. He'll bring it to you. We have an amendment on the floor.
Point of order, Madam Moderator. I believe the previous speaker asked for further study. Is he proposing a further study committee like we've done with some things?
I'll wait to see his amendment. We have an amendment by Mr. Flaherty. I move that we place Article 18 for further study. Do I have a second? I have a second. We now have an amendment on the floor, so any discussion will be on the amendment. Does anybody wish to speak on the amendment as to further study? Selectman Tropiano?
All right, so I am asking you to defeat this so that we can move forward. You know, I listen to people, I've been doing this for many, many years, and people always say government turns so slowly to get stuff done. And this is sort of exactly why, because, you know, we want to carry a very simple thing, which is done elsewhere, into our community. I mean, Aldi's has a great system. You got to put a quarter in the thing. Those baskets will never disappear. But, you know, this is just trying to make people keep control of their stuff so that it doesn't end up in the side of the road and in the gutters and the ditches and so on and so forth. And it's a very simple thing. It's not rocket science. It's a pretty simple article. And, you know, it's going to be difficult to get things done if we have to come back 16 times for something that's as simple as this. It just seems that, you know, government needs to be more proactive and work a little faster than it does. And I think we've been trying to do that up here as a group in general. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anything further to be said on the amendment on my left?
I guess I agree with what Selectman Tropiano just said. I question why further study is needed and question how this differs from any other littering violation, that there are already rules in place to address this problem.
Thank you. Anything further to be said on Mr. Flaherty's amendment? I see no one standing. I now will call for a vote on the amendment. And the amendment on Article 18, I move that we place Article 18 for further study. It requires a majority vote. You're voting on the amendment. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed?
No.
The amendment loses. We now are back to the original article, Article 18, as printed in the administration handout. Is there anything further to be said on Article 18?
Hi, Don Jepson, 15 Long Beach Road. A couple of weeks ago, I was in Stop and Shop with my grandson, and he said something to me, but did you steal this shopping cart? I looked a little perplexed, and I realized what he had done. There's a plastic overlay, and he twisted it around, and when he twisted it around, it said Walmart underneath. And then later on, I went, subsequent to that, I went with my wife, and either that's the same cart or there's a shopping cart service or something. I was just wondering if somebody could explain to me how this occurred and why is it happening more than once from what I could see. It sounds like it's a shopping cart service. Does anybody have any interest for that?
Apparently not, Mr. Jepson.
Okay, thank you.
Is there anything further to be said on Article 18? Seeing no one standing, I will call for a vote on Article 18 as printed in the administrative handout for your shopping cart bylaw. This requires a majority vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
No.
The chair is in doubt. I am going to ask for a count. All those that are in favor, please hold up your cards. I will ask the tellers to come forward, and please take a count. All those in favor of the shopping cart bylaw. Keep those cards up in the back. In the front section,
32.
to my right. I'm sorry, 24. In the center,
70.
70. On my left,
49. 49.
49. All those opposed, please hold your cards up. Keep those cards up till you're told to put them down. In the front,
5.
to my right,
33.
in the center,
66. 0.
and on my left.
20. 20.
There are 175 votes in the affirmative and 118 in the negative. The article passes. Passes by a majority. Article 11.
Article 11,
Ladies and gentlemen, please.
the revocation and adoption of the Wareham Cemetery Rules and Regulations. I move as printed in the Finance Committee warrant report.
Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. To speak to Article 11,
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Article 11 is before you tonight for your vote to accept the revised rules and regulations for the town of Wareham cemeteries. The previous document accepted in 1986 is outdated, lacks procedures, guidelines, and protection to its licensed holders and heirs. It is also not in compliance with Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 114, pertaining to cemeteries and burials. Thank you.
may I have the vote of the Board of Selectmen?
Sorry. The Board of Selectmen voted 4-0-0 favorable action.
May I have the vote and recommendation of the Finance Committee?
The Finance Committee recommends approval, 7-0-0.
Thank you. Is there anything further to be said on Article 11? Seeing no one standing, I will call for a vote. This requires majority vote. What you're voting on is the revocation and adoption of the cemetery rules and regulations. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed? It passes unanimously. Article 7.
Article 7, Stony Run Main Street Preserve. I move as printed in the warrant at the sum of $91,500.
Do I have a second?
Second.
To speak to Article 7, on my right,
Hi, I'm Susan McComb, the president of the Wareham Land Trust, and I just wanted to say that Stony Run, that piece of property connects to some other preserved property, and it's a great area of wildlife and fish preservation along the stream that runs out to Broad Marsh. And I'd also like to make a note that the Wareham Land Trust returned more than $89,000 to the Community Preservation Fund because we were able to receive grant funds for a particular piece of property. Thank you.
Thank you. May I have the vote of the Board of Selectmen?
Board of Selectmen voted to recommend 4-0.
May I have the vote and recommendation of the Finance Committee?
The Finance Committee recommends approval, 7-0-0.
Thank you. Is there anything further to be said on Article 7? Seeing no one standing, I will now call for the vote. Because this article, the town will hold a conservation restriction, it does involve an interest by the town in land, and so therefore it does require a 2/3 vote.
Madam Moderator, I
Mr.
did
Tobin?
have one amendment to offer on this.
And your amendment?
I believe I sent it to you earlier. I would move to amend the article by striking the words "and the Conservation Commission." This is because state law typically makes the Board of Selectmen the holder of interest in property, and we've done this in the past with other articles. They keep coming forward saying Selectmen and the Conservation Commission, and I think each time over the past 6 years since I've been on the board, we've just limited that to the Conservation Commission. I believe I sent my amendment to you earlier.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Uh,
What?
To your amendment.
Right, I'm saying strike the Conservation Commission.
So I have it, that's your amendment, to strike the conservation. I need a
Right.
second.
Second.
I have a second to your amendment. Would you like to speak to your amendment any further?
Not really.
Okay. We now have before us an amendment to Article 7, which is to strike and the words in the article "and the Conservation Commission," so that the conservation restriction is held by the Board of Selectmen. So anything further to be said on the amendment? If not, the vote will come on the amendment to strike the words "and the Conservation Commission." This only requires a majority vote for the amendment. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? No. It is a majority. We now go back to Article 7, which now would read as printed in the warrant, except you're taking out the words "and the Conservation Commission." And again, as the main motion, because there is an interest in land by the town, it does require a 2/3 vote. I will try for unanimous. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? It is unanimous. What was it, Mary? 6. Article 6.
Article 6, return on used funds from the project never implemented. I move that the town transfer $50,000 from Article 10 of the fall 2009 town meeting to the Community Preservation undesignated fund account.
We have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second to speak to Article 6.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. If you look in the Finance Committee handbook, there was an additional $20,000. We are not requesting that anymore. The Historic District has begun working on that. This $50,000 was set aside back in 2009 for digitization. I would suggest that this gets sent back to community preservation, and when there's a better plan put together, then we come and appropriate the funds to do digitization of our files. Thank you very much.
Thank you. May I have the vote of the Board of Selectmen?
Board of Selectmen voted 4-0-0 to recommend.
I have the vote and recommendation of the Finance Committee.
The Finance Committee recommends your approval, 7-0-0.
Is there anything further to be said on Article 6? Seeing no one standing, I now will call for a vote on Article 6, which is to return unused funds from a project that was never implemented. Requires majority vote. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Passes unanimously. Article 3.
Article 3, Spring 2018 Capital. I move that the town approve the Spring 2008 capital as follows. School Department, 4 school buses, $280,000, certified free cash. Police radio project, $159,000, certified free cash. IT technology, $50,000, certified free cash. EMS, 2 automated CPR devices, $35,000, certified free cash. Total certified free cash, $524,000. And further, that $800,000 is appropriated for planning, design, and installation of modular classrooms, including site preparation, landscaping, and all other costs incidental or related thereto, that to meet this appropriation, the treasurer, with the approval of the Board of Selectmen, is authorized to borrow $800,000 under Chapter 44 of the General Laws or any other enabling authority, and that the Board of Selectmen is authorized to take any other action necessary to carry out this project. Any premium received by the town upon the sale of any bonds or notes approved by this vote, less any such premium applied to the payment of the cost of insurance of such bonds or notes may be applied to the payment of costs approved by this vote in ordinance with Chapter 44, Section 20 of the General Laws, thereby reducing the amount authorized to be borrowed to pay such cost.
I think, Donald, I think there were a couple more words that aren't on the bottom of the screen, and to pay such costs by a like amount. I think it got ran off of the screen, so just so that we know. Mr. Town Administrator, is that correct?
Yes, to pay such costs by a like amount.
By a like amount.
Thank you.
Do I have a second? Second. I have a motion and a second to speak to Article 3.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. The first item is the 4 school buses. They will usually run you about $90,000. However, they did apply for a grant from the EPA, which will reduce that cost by $20,000 for each bus, which is why it's at that $280,000 mark. The police radio project, inside the handout, if you look, the cost of this project is $159,000. The police department has been having issues with radios going down for some time now. The frequency of these issues are now weekly. In emergency situations, they've had to request permission from surrounding communities to jump on their frequency. This is probably the most important part so people understand. Nearly 90% of the issues are with Verizon related to old copper lines. These are run through the copper lines from Verizon. They will not repair or replace them for us. So we looked at doing the fiber lines. The cost of running the fiber lines is estimated to be about $450,000. This is the cheaper solution, and it's a fine solution. We've used microwave technology before, and it's worked out well for the community. Technology, the cost is $50,000. The town currently has over 200 computers running Microsoft Windows 7 as the operating system. So Microsoft has set to December 2019 end of life when they'll stop supporting Windows 7. 75% of them were purchased in 2013 or before, and 85% of those are refurbished, so they're actually even older. We'd budgeted $4,300 for repairs and have already spent over $18,500 on repairs. So this will also help replace some of the physical servers between the town and the police department. The fourth one is 2 automated CPR devices, and the cost for those is $35,000, and that's for the EMS department. And the last item is the authorization only for the $800,000, which would be for portables if they are required to be borrowed to purchase. So,
Thank you. May I have the vote and recommendation, the vote of the Board of Selectmen?
Board of Selectmen voted 5-0-0 to recommend.
May I have the vote and recommendation of the Finance Committee?
The Finance Committee recommends approval, 8-0-0.
Thank you. Is there anything further to be said on Article 3? On my right?
Hi, Holly Van Nest from Onset. I have just a question about the item C, technology. I don't have any problem with the 50,000 going. It's a drop in the bucket for this amount of stuff that needs to be done. But I would like to understand what the technology plan is going forward so that there is regular upgrade of things instead of having to come up with extra money each year. I didn't see anything in the budget that really spoke to that, but maybe I missed it.
I think you're finding the crux of our issues.
I know.
We don't have the money to upgrade these each and every year, and that's why we use free cash for capital items. And I thank you for pointing that out, because usually you'll have maintenance plans or you can build them into your budget.
Right.
We can't afford that.
Okay, thank you for the answer.
Is there anything further to be said on Article 3? Seeing no one standing, I will call for a vote. Because this does involve borrowing, again, it requires a 2/3 vote. I will try for unanimous. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Passes unanimously. Article 15.
Article 15, amend zoning bylaws, Article 3, use regulations. I move as printed in the planning board handout.
Have a second? To speak to Article 15? Am I right?
Article 15 speaks to Article 3 of the Wareham zoning bylaw. We currently do not allow drive-throughs in any restaurants in town. It is prohibited across town in every district. We do allow drive-throughs for non-restaurant related uses in the commercial general district, which that district runs from approximately where 195 starts at Cranberry Highway. It runs down Cranberry Highway to roughly Robertson's. We are proposing to allow restaurant-related drive-throughs by special permit only, with some conditions regarding internal parking lot, auto circulation, trash receptacles, access on and off arterial roads and access roads, which would basically be, in this case, would be Cranberry Highway primarily. So if you're on Cranberry Highway or any of the other arterial roads, you cannot access directly onto that main road. So we have implemented a few conditions, and it is by special permit only, not by right.
Thank you. Mr. Barrett, you have a report of the planning board?
Yes, the planning board did hold a public hearing on this on February 12th and voted 4-0-0 to support it. As you probably know, there's been many inquiries about having drive-throughs in our developing retail district, and for years it's been prevented because of the traffic hazards that's created on East Wareham. What we've tried to accomplish is to put some criteria behind the special permit that would prevent direct access on the Cranberry Highway. Would either have to be through a signalized intersection or inside an existing shopping center. Mainly, we want to eliminate the lane crossing incidents that we've seen happen on Cranberry Highway and created the problem in the first place.
Thank you. May I have the recommendation of the Board of Selectmen?
Board of Selectmen voted to recommend 400.
May I have the vote and recommendation of the Finance Committee?
The Finance Committee voted 700 to approve.
Thank you. Is there anything further to be said on Article 15, the gentleman on my right?
Howard Smith, Precinct 4. So basically, at this point in time, we have no regulations pertaining to drive-throughs, so we don't have any. They can't put them in anywhere at all.
To answer the question?
Fast food related, or food related drive-throughs, not allowed.
I'm sorry?
Food related, food service drive-throughs are not allowed at this time.
Okay. Well, a number of years ago, there was a strategic planning committee that was put in place in West Wareham. That committee consisted of residents, business people, town officials. And one of the things that they came up with, particularly pertaining to the West Wareham area, I'm from West Wareham, I'm prejudiced, I'll be honest. One of the things that they came about was you have drive-ins down on the lower end of Cranberry Highway, but you also have 4 lanes of traffic, which today is still presenting a problem because we're looking at millions of dollars to try to correct that situation with a dividing strip. Most of West Wareham, you only have 2 lanes. At the present time, almost every day, I'm going up and down Cranberry Highway. And at this point in time, I'm seeing people going in and out, mostly in the out lanes. They're crossing traffics at Wareham Crossing. One of the biggest things now I'm noticing is if you're going up Cranberry Highway, you get to the Toby Road lights, they're in the left lane, which basically is to make a left-hand turn onto Toby Road. All of a sudden, they realize, no, they missed a light, they can't get through, so they're zooming ahead, cutting the people off in the right lane, and they're zipping into the wrong way into Walmart. This is happening every day. So if we have nothing in place for drive-ins, I'd rather leave it that way. We don't need any more. Thank you.
Is there anything further to be said on Article 15? Seeing no.
Madam Moderator, just to clarify, the boundary of general commercial going west or north, whichever way you want to look at it, is approximately Toby Road. So it would not extend beyond that point at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Barrett, for that clarification. Is there anything further to be said on Article 15? Seeing no one standing, I will call for a vote, which is to amend the zoning bylaws for use regulations as is printed in your handout. Again, because this is a zoning bylaw, it requires a 2/3 vote. I will try for unanimous. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye. Aye.
All those opposed? It is unanimous. It passes by a 2/3 uncounted vote. Ladies and gentlemen, we have completed our special town meeting. I would accept a motion to dissolve the special town meeting. Second, do I hear a second? The special town meeting is now dissolved, and we will go back to our annual meeting. I believe it was Article 17, which I believe was a petition article. The petitioner would like to present Article 17.
Yep. I make a motion to accept as presented. Can you hear me? I make a motion to accept as presented.
On the screen?
On the screen.
Do I have a second? The motion before you and seconded is, as is on the screen, to speak to Article 17. Mrs. Foley?
Did you want me to read that?
No, I want you to explain your
Okay.
article.
All right. Donna Foley. Okay. Thank you. Donna Foley, Precinct 1, Cremisa Park. Aquaculture is the for-profit business of commercial farming of shellfish. The provisions of Chapter 130, Section 60 of the Massachusetts General Law covering aquaculture do not go far enough to inform and protect Wareham residents with regard to commercial aquacultural grants. We propose this article as an additional safeguard to Wareham homeowners. As with building permits or other changes to neighborhoods, the town of Wareham requires that a notice of intent be mailed in writing to advise abutters of home alterations, so residents can voice their opinions at a public hearing. These notices are even more important when changes are close to sensitive shorefronts. Comprehensive notification is a must when our navigable and recreational waters will be disrupted due to a commercial marine farming development. The towns of Marion, Fairhaven, Mattapoisett, and Plymouth all require written abutter notifications in their towns and have for a number of years. We are not opposed to aquaculture. We welcome all efforts to bring revenue into our town. However, we as abutters want only to be officially notified. This will ensure integrity in the process and protect the rights of the residents, taxpayers, and critical species habitats. As aquaculture becomes more prolific in our town, we want to ensure that placement of these business operations adhere to strict guidelines and best management practices, and that they are sited in areas where their impact will have the least detrimental effect on the peaceful enjoyment of our homes, the wildlife, birds, and aquatic creatures, whether endangered or not, that inhabit these sensitive areas, and the recreational and open spaces uses of the waters, marshes, and wetlands. As a practical matter, there will be no cost to the taxpayers. All costs associated with a written notice of intent will be paid by the applicant applying for such a grant. A yes vote on Article 17 makes sense. Please vote yes on Article 17.
Thank you. May I have the vote of the Board of Selectmen?
Board of Selectmen voted 5-0-0 not to recommend.
May I have the vote and recommendation of the Finance Committee?
The Finance Committee recommends against this Article 700.
Thank you. Is there anything further to be said? The gentleman on the right, Mrs. Foley, if you would let him have the microphone.
Herb Williams, Precinct Wing 1, 19 Conehassett Road, on Marks Cove. I support yes on Article 17. I'm a homeowner and member of the Cremisa Park Association. Our homeowners association was not notified of this oyster farm being proposed in our cove. We were blindsided. The oyster farm grant notice in the newspaper was ambiguous and did not give common name for the water location, which is Marks Cove. The subsequent grant notices given a location were written in longitude and latitude lines, which probably 99% of the people here can't read, including me. The town should not be using a method to identify a location that is impossible for a layperson or abutters to identify. The Article 17 will give notification to abutters and others and is an important common sense courtesy to us, to neighborhoods who may be impacted by any aquaculture development. A notice of intent regarding aquaculture should be a requirement in Wareham's commercial shellfish regulations, as it is in our surrounding towns. The state law stipulates newspaper notification of an oyster farm calls for identifying a common location. It does not call for latitude and longitude lines. I urge you to vote yes on Article 17, and it is not costing the town a penny to do this.
Thank you. Selectman Titlebaum?
Yes, the Board of Selectmen voted 5-0-0 to not recommend this article for good reason. A half a mile means I can look out my window at Tempest Knob and would receive notice of something happening around the corner of Hamilton Beach. The notice provisions would require literally hundreds, if not thousands, of certified mail, return receipt notices be sent out to people. I don't think anybody can say that if you're within half a mile of something, you're truly in a butter. State law requires that the Board of Selectmen publish notice of a hearing. This goes in the newspapers. To the issue of latitude and longitude, that's something that can be worked on. But people did show up, interestingly enough, at our meeting before last town meeting to object to what was happening in Marks Cove. There were about 15 people there complaining about it. So obviously people got notice. So I don't understand the notion that people were ambushed by this. As to the idea that it's not going to cost the town anything, in order to create a certified abutters list, you have to go to the assessor's office. You give them the address where your project is going to be. They would literally have to comb through dozens of zoning maps and thousands of parcels in order to create the list for the applicant to send stuff out to people half a mile away. Accordingly, I'd urge you to vote this down.
Thank you. On my right?
Yes,
I'm
Mr.
sorry,
Titlebaum.
hang on one second. What time, did he have any time left? No, your time was up, sir.
Okay.
On my right?
I wanted to tell him that Corner House is not night, half a mile from Marks Cove.
Okay. My name is Marilyn Jordan. I'm from Precinct 1, Sippican Road. I'm in favor of a yes vote on Article 17 because the more information, the better in guiding any development project. Abutting residents can inform the process of aquaculture development and in determining the compatibility with the proposed location. Information from abutting residents can be essential for careful consideration of sensitive and critical habitat, as well as existing use and for the establishment of appropriate parameters, including project siting, scope, and scale. Identification of abutting residents and mailed notifications would be helpful, if not essential, for those who do not subscribe to local newspapers or who do not make frequent visits to town offices. The effort to inform abutting residents should be more proactive and a higher priority on the part of the town. Please vote yes on Article 17. And Madam Moderator, as a point of order, if I would like to request a hand count, how and would I go about that?
Only if the chair is in doubt. If the chair is in doubt, I will ask for a hand count, or if you find that the body is in doubt, then 6 people could stand and ask that the count be counted.
Thank you, Madam Moderator.
Gentleman on my right.
Good evening, Gary Buckminster. I'm the Shellfish Constable for the town of Wareham. I respectfully rise in opposition to this. It's not because I don't understand what they're expressing. I do agree with them. Division of Marine Fisheries does feel that the half-mile radius is somewhat excessive, and on the local standpoint, it was accepted at the town meeting in 1953 that gave the Board of Selectmen the power to actually vote and produce the shellfish regulations without even having to go to town meeting on this. Now, I think this may be putting the cart before the horse in respect to, if we're looking at aquaculture, right now we don't have this regulation in our shellfish regulations. We do have commercial regulations, which is for wild harvest of shellfish in town and also recreational. The aquaculture industry operates on a completely separate set of guidelines where they actually have double the amount of regulations that they have to go through as opposed to a standard commercial fisherman. I would recommend this be voted down, and in no disrespect to the proponents of this. And I'd rather see this go to the Board of Selectmen in the forms of an aquaculture plan, so we don't just look at this one option and we look at the regulations that we do have, because they do date back to maybe 2003, 2005, and come up with a more solid set of guidelines as opposed to just putting this in place and then having a bunch of outdated stuff circulating around it. And then we're locked in on this one as well. So I do feel that we will look at this. I think it's a solid tool, but I do request that it be voted down, and we'll work towards getting a better regulation in place that does protect the concerns of the proponents of this article. Thank you.
Thank you. I think our assessor is standing to speak. Is she not?
Jackie Nichols, Director of Assessing. I would just like to second what Selectman Titlebaum said, and this is not a no-cost issue for taxpayers, especially when we're talking a half a mile and we're starting point in the middle of the water. This will take a manual, a butters list, a lot of research on a very overtaxed staff, and it will cost the taxpayers money.
Thank you. On my right?
Is it me? I do agree maybe
Could
a
you
half
state your
of-
name, please?
Oh, Donna Foley, Precinct 1, Cremisa Park. I do agree maybe a half a mile is extensive. I do know that Fairhaven requires 500 feet, and Plymouth 750 feet, and Mattapoisett at 1,000 feet. We'll go 1,000 feet, but these towns already have this in place and have had it in place for a number of years. Why doesn't Wareham have it in place?
Thank you. On my left?
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Bill Heaney, Precinct 1. It sounds as if maybe something should be done, but the half-a-mile radius seems excessive. And so I would move that the proponents for further study and come back at the next town meeting with possibly a different radius or something along those lines.
Would you like to make an amendment?
Yeah, for further study.
An amendment for further study? Well, Mr. Haney is writing that. I think we understand what he's trying to get at. So we now have an amendment on the floor for further study. Is there anything to be said on the amendment? Oh, do we have a second? Second. Okay. Is there anything further to be said on the amendment?
Yes, this is a sensible way to look at it. And in the meantime, certainly, as the harbor master said, he can come to us, he can ask to get on the agenda, he can take the concerns of the abutters, he can speak with the people who've brought this article forward and try to come up with something that's a little more reasonable. Again, a half a mile, you're talking literally thousands of people who receive notice, and many of whom would never even see this thing, many of whom don't even get that close to the water. So I think looking at what the other towns have done, by the proponent's own admission, it's much less drastic in terms of the amount of notice required. So I would support the amendment for further study.
Is there anything further to be said on the amendment? On my right?
I'd just like to ask.
Okay, we're on an
Ask a
amendment.
question. If this amendment fails, can we remake an amendment to say 1,000 feet instead of half a mile and give it to you if this amendment that's up for vote now fails?
Well, we then go back to the original article, and at that time you can ask that question.
Okay, thank you.
So right now, we are on Article 17. We have an amendment before you for Article 17 for further study. This only requires a majority vote. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed?
No.
Passes by a majority. We now have Article 17 as your main motion, which is for further study. This requires a majority vote. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed? No. Passes by a majority. Article 3.
Article 3, compensation of certain elected officials.
Dominic, I'm going to hold you right there before you make this motion. I'm going to ask that the deputy moderator take this article so that there is no conflict of interest on the moderator's position. Mr. Ashley?
Can I have the motion on Article 3, please?
Article 3, compensation of certain elected officials. I move that the town vote to establish the salary for the town clerk, registrar, and town moderator as followed. The town clerk, $84,000 annually, annualized through term, and $60,000 annualized thereafter. Registrar, $700. Town moderator, $120 per diem.
To speak to the article? Motion heard, I heard a second.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. This is one that comes up annually, and we set the compensation by town meeting. So, thank you.
Thank you. And can I have the vote of the Board of Selectmen, please?
Board of Selectmen voted 4-0-0 to recommend.
And the recommendation of the Finance Committee?
Finance Committee recommends approval, 7-0-0.
Seeing no one standing, I will now call for a vote on Article 3. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, please say no. The motion carries by a unanimous vote.
Thank you, Mr. Ashley. Article 13.
Article 13, restoration of Onset Pier. I move that the town vote to accept Article 13 as printed in the warrant, with the $250,000 coming from the undesignated fund.
I have a second? To speak to Article 13?
Thank you, Madam Moderator. This is to seek $250,000 from CPC funds to help engineer the rehab of the Onset Pier. As you know, it's a recreational destination. I'm sure if I took a hand count, everybody has been there from walking to fishing to anything else. You can park there, you can get boat access. So it's a great recreational spot in the town. It's going to need some massive rehab. Things that stay in the salt water do not last forever, and this is it's really an asset to the whole community. Thank you.
Thank you. May I have the vote of the Board of Selectmen?
Board of Selectmen voted 4-0-0 to recommend.
May I have the vote and recommendation of the Finance Committee?
Finance Committee recommends approval, 7-0-0.
Thank you. Is there anything further to be said on Article 13? On my left?
Yes, Nan Miller, Onset. I think this is a good project. However, I think the funding is a problem. In conversations with the Community Preservation Coalition this past week, the pier does not qualify under historic preservation, open space, or recreation, and because it is a commercial pier, community preservation funds should not be used to rehab the property. The issue becomes the fact that part of your money that goes into community preservation comes from the state, and consequently, you cannot charge for those projects. So if you are doing records, say at the town hall, those records become open and free to everyone because the town and the state put money in both of the projects. With the pier, it's great, but the funding is illegal. And if anyone wants to call up there, they've been getting a lot of calls this past week. Stuart Saginaw says that this is a problem project because it does not fall under Section 2 of the Community Preservation Act, and because it is a commercial pier, CPC funds should not be used to finance it. Thank you.
Thank you. On my left? On my left.
Oh, sorry.
Marie Strawn, Precinct 2. Also, according to these problems with the pier, who owns the pier? The town of Wareham does not. It's on dedicated public trust land. It was, the original Onset Pier was built illegally, and this was built by the WPA on land that was dedicated to the free public use as the beach. It never should have been built. And I'm sure there are selectmen who can tell you about the decree of 1916.
Oh, yes.
Ladies and gentlemen, hold that, please. We have one speaker on the right, and then we go to Mr. Slavin, Mr. Titlebaum. On my right?
I'd like to make a motion to send this back for further study by indefinitely postponing it. I will support that by saying there are a number of problems with the actual grant application. I don't know how many people have had a chance to review the actual grant application, but it's very poor, it's poorly done, it's poorly supported, it doesn't qualify. There's a conflict between what the Finance Committee recommends, which is in our books, which is a new pier, a construction of a new pier for $5.5 million, and the grant that's about refurbishing and restoring the pier, so it's not clear who recommended what. And then we get into issues about expanding the pier, which is also here, which gets us into who owns the land they're going to expand on. For all these reasons, I will have a written motion to send this for indefinite postponement of the article for further study.
Do you have it written?
I do.
Joe? Joe?
I'll do it, Joe.
Let's see what her motion is. Thank you. We have an amendment to Article 13, a motion to indefinitely postpone Article 13. To speak to the amendment, Mr. Slavin?
I would ask that we defeat this motion simply because the information just provided by actually Mrs. Miller, I'm going to have to make a speech about it very shortly, explaining what really happened at the coalition since I spoke to them this morning. Thank you.
Did I have a second to the motion? I didn't hear. Okay. Mr. Slavin, would you like to speak to the amendment for indefinite? I mean, you can explain why you are asking people not to vote indefinite postponement and bring your conversation in.
I called Stuart Saginaw this morning because there was some confusion of information being given out. When I spoke to Stuart, he basically said he hadn't spoke to anybody. He has an aide over there called Chase, who did speak to, I think it was a Mrs. Anderson, and that's the only record they have at all. When I spoke to Stuart, I asked him what was going on, to get some background. He basically stated that if your town council has agreed that this qualifies for the project, that's all that's necessary for them. They have nothing else to say. They're not a state agency. They're just a coalition that recommends and gives information out. If our town council said it's correct, it is correct. And that is by the source that people are claiming said no. Thank you.
Mr. Titlebaum, to speak to the amendment?
Yes, I'd urge the body to vote the amendment down. There seems to be a little bit of confusion about what was allowed under the decree and what isn't. And I'd actually like to read from the decree itself for a second here. This is towards the end of the decree, which, by the way, is nothing more than the entry of judgment from the underlying case, which was Attorney General versus Onset Bay Grove Association, which was the original developer. In short, this was Wareham's first large-scale subdivision project, and like every subdivision project in town, it got screwed up. So Let me tell you a little bit about what happened with the pier.
I'm sorry, point of order, this isn't on the amendment.
He will get to that.
Right at the very end in the final decree, it says, provided, however, that this decree and any injunction to hereafter issue thereon shall not apply to or in any manner operate so as to interfere with the water standpipe or its uses on the aforesaid Woburn Grove at its present location or with its underground connections and approaches thereto. And further, provided further that this decree and any injunction to issue thereon shall not apply to or be operated against the wharf and the buildings known thereon as Association Wharf. What you see in Onset now, where the town pier is basically the Association Wharf, the original wharf that the original developer built for public use. That was exempted out of the decree, and so we have a wharf there. It's true that it was redone with WPA funds in the 1930s. It was in fact expanded. The question is whether the expansion violates the decree. The decree sets aside that entire shorefront for the following purposes: beaching, bathing, boating, and fishing. It doesn't say that beaching or bathing is more important than boating. It didn't say you couldn't expand the pier to accommodate the boating use. So any claims that we have to further study this to figure out the impact of the decree, just don't really hold any water. I would refer anybody else to ask town council about this. He and I have banged this back and forth, and he agrees with me.
Thank you. I believe the woman that's sitting down was next. Do you wish to speak?
Go ahead, Holly.
You yield to, on my left?
Point of information.
State your point.
Association Wharf.
Can you step up to the microphone?
Point of information.
State your point.
The Association Wharf was the wharf across from the association building, but it wasn't where the wharf is now. The Association Wharf was a steamship wharf. They kept that because they had a lot of steamships coming in. What the town had was a little dinky wooden wooden dock out to a floating
Sir.
harbor masters. That was the Association Wharf, not where it is now.
Thank you. Gentleman on my right, to speak to the amendment.
Mark Alongi from Onset, and about the amendment and the, sorry, and the pier. The picture on the front of our directions this evening is the pier. Back when the decree was, and what Marie was saying was that the dock closest to us is what Mr. Titlebaum was speaking to. At any rate, I don't believe that this should go forward because CPC monies are not for this project. They're for recreation. This is not a recreation pier. We fish off it, but it's more commercial with the Viking, with the Lady K, with the Harbor Master's office. You pay to park on it. It's not a CPC fund.
On my left? Yes?
Holly Haratunian, Onset. With all respect to our town council, even a lawyer can be wrong, and I just can't take his word that it's all okay. I agree that we need to look into more of the decree of 1916. And I would like to say to the town, we really need, in order for us to trust you, we need to be given documents that we asked for. So many things lately we've had to go through.
Would you stick to the amendment, please? Why you are favoring indefinite postponement?
I was speaking to the original. I didn't know we were on the amendment.
No, we're on the amendment.
Well, never mind then.
Gentleman on my left.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Bill Heaney, Precinct 1. It's been mentioned by a previous speaker that that essentially town council has the say in this, and so I'd like to hear from town council as to his opinion. He's the person that we are all paying to come up with an opinion. So, for you, Madam Moderator, to town council.
If he wishes to answer. Town Council?
Thank you, Madam Moderator, through you to the previous speaker. I always like to get a chance to use my own words rather than hear what everybody has said about what it was I supposedly said. So here's what I think, and here are my words. If this pier, if the only way you could get on this pier was by paying a fee, if there was a gate across it, you went up to a machine, you put $5 in it, and that was the only way that you could walk on this pier, carry a fishing rod on this pier, step on the pier, there's absolutely no question in my mind that you could not use CPA funds to do this kind of project because it would be purely a commercial enterprise. Now, as a previous speaker mentioned, that he went on the pier and could fish. He acknowledged that he fished on the pier. The scenario I just described is not the case. If you want to go down there with a drop line, if you want to go down there and surf cast, you can do that, and that's recreation. There's no hard and set formula in the statutes as to what percentage of use must be commercial, what percentage of use must be recreational, what percentage of use must be passive. But what we have, albeit from an opponent of the project, is a clear admission that recreational activity does take place on the pier. And I've heard no one suggest that you can't go on the pier unless you pay a fee. So absent that type of prohibition, and with the admitted ability to go on the pier just to take in the view, to fish, to do anything else that you can do, it is a recreational facility.
Thank you. Madam Moderator, can I have a follow-up question?
Yes.
Through you again to Town Council. We've heard a selectman speak about the decree and so forth, and I wasn't around in 1916, so I really don't know. But if you could give us your opinion on the decree and if it is at all applicable.
Madam Moderator, through you to the previous speaker, I resent the implication that I was around in 1916. Bill, you know better. Yeah, I'd be happy to talk about what the decree is. You know, when people hear about the decree, they think of it as some almost a cuneiform tablet from ancient times that got dug up in the desert and is dense and impenetrable. If you put it in today's context, it's actually a fairly easy to understand document. And let me suggest to you a way that you can take the decree in and apply it to your own circumstances today. If the decree were a lawsuit being brought today, it would be a lawsuit being brought by the Attorney General for a consumer protection action. It would be like what we see, 93A lawsuits where the AG steps in and goes after a company that was misrepresenting a product to the public. So how does that pertain to the decree? Back in 1877, a developer went and bought 150 acres of onset land. And in 1878, came up with a plan. It was a lovely plan. It laid out boulevards, parks, vistas. It was today what we would call a subdivision plan. And of course, the planning board didn't get involved in things like that in those days. I'm not even sure we had a planning board back then. Be that as it may, the developer came up with this beautiful plan for onset and then went out to the marketplace and started selling lots off in this beautiful subdivision. Hey, come on down to Onset. You're going to enjoy the beach. You're going to enjoy the views, the parks. It's going to be lovely. Trust me, it's going to be great. And so people started buying. Well, by the 1890s, and this is a bit of surmise on my part, things maybe weren't going as well for the developer. And maybe the developer wanted to start to raise a little bit of money that maybe the developer needed. Maybe sales weren't what the developer had hoped for. Because all of a sudden the developer wants to start building houses or other properties in the middle, in the middle of these parks that had been promised to the buyers. All of a sudden, the boulevards weren't going to be so gracious. They were going to be narrow, or maybe they weren't going to exist at all. Some would say that the developer did a bait and switch. If we were talking about a lawsuit today, that's exactly what we would be saying about the developer. And we'd be running off to court and saying, hey, you tried to hose us over, we're bringing a 93A action against you, we're going to sue you. That's today's language. You read the decree, it's all, thou, therefore, old-time language. But it says the same thing. So there was then a course of litigation that went on for about 16 or 17 years, trying to figure out what the developer had promised, what the people who bought there were entitled to based on the promises. And then finally, by about 1915 and 1916, the courts figured it out. And what the court did was it did two things. It looked at the amenities that had been promised to the purchasers back from the time of the original 1878 plan. All those amenities that were promised, all those views, the streets, the parks. And so the court listed the categories out. It looked at things in onset that had value to the public. Now, what's interesting is among the things that the court listed out as having value to the public was a wharf. And it, I believe, has been the common understanding of most people present, although clearly not all, that the wharf referred to in the decree was the predecessor of the pier that's there now. So the court, back in the 1916 final decree, said that wharf, which we now understand to be the pier, had public value. It was an amenity. It was not subject to the restrictions of the decree. So the decree went on and said, well, there are other categories of things that have value. Bathing, swimming, the beach. I think those were the three that were listed, perhaps fishing as well. Those were things of additional value to the members of the public, to the persons who bought in based on the 1877 plan. So the question is this pier against the terms of the decree? And I know I can't call her quite a contemporary, but I'll say the lady of considerable years, no offense, ma'am, I'm of considerable years myself, stated that it was an illegal use. I don't believe that to be the case. I believe that the decree stated that the predecessor of today's pier was allowed by law, by the decree. And I also believe that the decree said that fishing and activities of that sort also have value, and that the pier as an ancillary to fishing is also allowed. So I believe that there are two independent bases for transforming the pier as is being proposed here. I'm sorry for the long answer. It took the court 16 or 17 years to say what I just said. I hope I did a little better. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Am I right, gentlemen, am I right?
Mike Flaherty, Precinct 1. Notwithstanding that very detailed explanation, process, I'm probably going to vote against this amendment, but process-wise, I do need to understand. I too have a hard time believing that somehow the town council is the ultimate authority on this. So let's say ultimately this gets voted in, as originally stated, and we're going to say we're going to use CPC funds. Is someone at the state going to say yes or no, that yeah, you did it right, or no, you didn't?
To answer the question?
No.
So he really is the ultimate authority. Wow. All right.
Well, you're free to ignore him at your own peril.
All right.
Mr. Slavin, would you wish to answer the question?
Michael, just so you understand, what it is you have a coalition which is basically available to all the citizens when it comes to Community Preservation Act. They don't make any decisions because they're not a state agency. They just give you basic information. The comment directly from Mr. Saginaw was that it's a local item, and it's done by the local government. In this case here, the town council represents us in making legal decisions. That's why it's done that way.
It's still a little scary, though. Thank you.
I believe Mrs. Slavin was next.
Yes, thank you, Sandy Slavin, Precinct 3. This is the amendment to further study, correct?
Correct.
One of the comments made, further study, is there wasn't any real definitive answer as to what this funds would be for. FinCom said a rebuild, but if you look at the motion as submitted by Community Preservation Committee, we said the restoration of the pier, not rebuilding. So to me, there's no question the purpose of this article is for the restoration of the onset pier. Please defeat the further study.
Thank you. On my left, Mr. Barrett.
Yeah, George Barrett, I'm the planning board member of the CPC. And any question that's asked of the coalition, it usually ends with ask town council, because he's the one that ultimately has to defend it, I imagine. And the other large criteria for using CPC funds is the vote of this body. If we decide that's what we want to do with our CPC funds and town council is okay with it, then it goes forward.
Thank you. Is there anything further to be said on the amendment?
Yes, I'd like to speak in support of my amendment. We do have a real big problem here because the grant itself was never included. I don't know how many people in this room have read the grant, but the grant, it calls for a $550,000 study and a $5.5 million project. And I don't know if any of you have ever read it because we weren't given it. I have it because I filed a FOIA request. And it's clearly in page 100 of the warrant that we have in front of us, that the rehabilitation and restoration of town assets for recreation have to have been previously acquired or created using monies from CPA, which the pier was not. So I don't, whether or not we talk about ancient history in 1916, that's not the issue before us. We've got the Finance Committee voted for a new pier, and that's what's on page 34. On the other page, we have that in order to use CPA funds for any of this, it had to have been built with CPA funds. If you build a playground with CPA funds and 20 years later you need to fix it, that's okay. But if it's not okay. And clearly the buck stops here. And people shouldn't be voting on this until they've read the grant application. Therefore, I ask you to support further study so you all get to see the vote.
30 seconds.
Thank you.
Mr. Titlebaum?
Yeah, just as a point of clarification about a remark the previous speaker made. In 2012, this was after the case of Cedarman versus the city of Newton. Newton proceeded to take CPA funds, used it on property they already owned. 10 taxpayers sued. The SJC said, nope, you can't do that under the Community Preservation Act. They struck it down. In 2012, the legislature amended the Community Preservation Act so that you could spend community preservation funds on previously acquired public parcels. That's the only reason we've been able to refurbish playgrounds that the town owns with community preservation funds. So to say that this is illegal is simply untrue.
Am I right?
Sandy Slavin, ditto. I was going to say the same thing. Several years ago, the law was changed to allow for CPA funds to rehab recreation areas that were not purchased with CPA funds. Peter, thank you.
Am I right?
Kathy Anderson, I have Precinct 2. My question is this, going toward Mrs. Morales. In a Wareham Weekly article that was interviewed, I believe our harbor master who did apply for this grant, if I'm wrong, I apologize to him, but he said he needed $550,000 for a engineering study, and $250,000 of that was coming from the CPC fund. But when you read this article here, it is for the expansion and restoration. So what is it exactly? And I think that's why Ms. Morales is asking for further study for this amendment. It was an article that he did an interview with the reporter. So And I don't
To
mean to
an-
put you on the spot. Okay.
To answer the question?
Am I allowed to answer her question? Or
Yes.
would you like me to wait?
No, go ahead.
Okay. This is not a study. This is getting the ball rolling. This is an investment into our community. This is an investment to Onset. This is an investment to our recreation. This is an investment to handicap accessibility. This is an investment to a pier that's deteriorating. It is not a study. It's not stated in my application that the pier is up for expansion. They rebuild, they have certain methods that they have to follow in their rebuilding of the pier. I did not request to enlarge the pier, so I hope that answered it. If there's anything else? Okay. So thank you.
Thank you. Is there anything further to be said on the amendment of Article 13 for indefinite postponement? Seeing no one standing, I will now call for the vote on Article 13, which is the amendment to Article 13 for indefinite postponement. This only requires a simple majority. All those in favor of the amendment, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, please say no. The amendment loses. We are now back to the main Article 13.
I want to change my vote.
Madam Moderator, move the question.
I did not see anyone standing, so I will accept your motion to move the question. All those in favor to move the question, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? It passes. We now are back to Article 13. I knew I took my glasses off, but I thought I could see it. So we now are voting on Article 13 to accept. Article 13 is printed in the warrant. This requires a majority vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Passes by a majority. We are bordering on, we have 3 minutes before, in our charter, we have to end our meeting at 10 o'clock.
Move to go past the hour of 10.
I have a motion to go past the hour of 10 and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? We will go beyond the hour of 10. Article 6.
Article 6.
Ladies and gentlemen, please.
FY19 capital plan. I move that the town approve the FY19 capital plan as followed. Police, capital lease and equipment, 4 police vehicles and 2 motorcycles.
Ladies and gentlemen, I realize you're leaving, but we don't need to discuss between yourselves that you're leaving. Please listen to the motion that is being made. Thank you.
$97,816, FY19 police budget capital. B, WPCF replace 3 generators, including electrical panels and installation cost, $145,400. FY19 WPCF budget capital line, total $243,216.
Do I have a second?
Second.
For those of you that don't know what WPCF, that's Water Pollution Control Facility, to speak to the article. Did I take your thunder?
No, I
I'm sorry.
apologize. You're right. That's acronyms are can be vague. Folks, this is what we're seeking to do. This is part of our capital plan. Is inside the police budget, there's a capital line. You'd see the 3 items: personnel, expenses, capital. In that capital line, we continuously lease equipment so that we're turning them over. If you remember, I would say years back, there was a they purchased 14 Chargers at once. That's nice, but once you do something like that, you have to replace 14 of those vehicles at the same time. So we're trying to stagger those and set them out. So this $97,816 obviously is not going to get you that's the 4 police vehicles and 2 motorcycles. That spread is capital leases over 3 years. And a capital lease means at the end of the term of those 3 years, we own that equipment. The WPCF, or the Water Pollution Control Facility, that is for 3 generators and continues the generator replacement program, and those are in the pump stations. So that is also within the Water Pollution Control Facility budget line under their capital. So the totals for $243,216. Thank you.
Thank you. May I have the vote of the Board of Selectmen?
I believe the Board of Selectmen voted 3-2-0.
May I have the vote and recommendation of the Finance Committee?
Finance Committee recommended approval 800.
Is there anything further to be said on Article 6? Selectman Tropiano?
I move to amend the motion by eliminating the motorcycles and adding 1 police car, so there'd be 5 police cars and no motorcycles.
Have an amendment and a second. Do you wish to speak to your amendment while you're writing?
Yeah. All right, so I'm concerned about the motorcycles. Out of the last 4 chiefs, the first one, Chippy Hammond, mothballed the motorcycles because of issues. Tommy kept them mothballed. They came back when a gentleman leased some for us and gave us 2, in which they were being used, and there were 3 accidents in 1 month. People, you know, I respect police officers. We pay a lot of money to get police officers trained. We value them, and it's a shame to see them injured for stuff that is just silliness. A motorcycle can only be used maybe 3 months of the year, tops. And during those 3 months of the year, half the time it's probably raining and they can't use them on the rainy days. So, you know, it's kind of silly to have a motorcycle. Now, some people would argue, well, we use them in the parades and we use them to get into, you know, onset during, I don't know, fireworks or whatever. Well, CEMELAC, which is an organization that we all belong to, can send us motorcycles. As a matter of fact, last year they did send us motorcycles. They sent us 2 for a short period of time, because that's what we asked for the Cape Verdean Festival. So motorcycles are available if they're necessary, not necessarily with our officers on them. And frankly, I care a lot about our officers, and I'm worried about them being injured. And I just think that this is a bad idea. I drove a motorcycle when I was young, and I got beat up pretty good doing it, and I know how they are, and I know what they're all about, and I think it's just not a good idea. So I urge you to change this to a police car, which I would feel much safer that these guys are being protected in those police cars than on these motorcycles. Thank you.
I need your motion. Yep. In the meantime, the gentleman on my right.
How you doing? Lieutenant Walsick, Wareham Police. There were only 2 accidents, and one was a parked motorcycle by the side of the road. The second one was the officer's fault. He was a minor injury. Those motorcycles are necessary. I don't like motorcycles. I've never ridden one, but our police department needs them.
Is there anything further to be said on the amendment? We'll wait. Take your time.
Sandy Slavin, Precinct 3.
Wait, Sandy, there is somebody coming down ahead of you.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, she can go ahead. Okay. Go ahead, Sandy.
We should defeat this amendment. The police department knows what they need for the equipment to do their job. I'm sorry. I received my first motorcycle in 1969 as a wedding gift. I do not ride 3 months a year. I do not ride if it's not raining. The police know what they want for equipment. Let's give it to them. It's just as dangerous for a policeman to serve a warrant as it is for a policeman to ride in a cruiser, as a policeman to do police details. They're asking for this. I believe we defeat this amendment and give them what they're asking for. Thank you.
Thank you. Cindy, I have to laugh because you may have gotten a motorcycle, but ask my husband what he got for his 25th wedding anniversary. He got a fire truck. Am I right?
Fire truck. That's funny.
Oh, right, you're right. That would be me.
That would be you.
My name's Happy Snodgrass, Precinct 6. I'm speaking in favor of having the police motorcycles. They are extremely beneficial when dealing with areas where you have a lot of traffic, where you have significant events. Simply summer traffic here, in my opinion, warrants that. I do believe that we need to trust our police administrators to make the decisions that are best for providing law enforcement services within our community. They are best trained for that. If there is a question, certainly there are town administrators with whom that can be discussed and those issues meted out. As to the safety, I respect what the gentleman said regarding how he got beat up on his motorcycle. I can assure you that law enforcement goes through very significant training that is very different from your average civilian motorcycle rider. As a matter of fact, I have friends who are motorcycle instructors who actually prefer to have trainees in their motorcycle, the police motorcycle school, who don't have significant prior riding experience because they've not developed any of the bad habits that might negatively impact them as a law enforcement rider. I can tell you that even having lunch as a police officer can be dangerous, as we've seen in Florida, where 2 officers were assassinated simply sitting having lunch. Speaking to the safety, according to the Officer Down Memorial page, I can tell you that so far this year we've lost 44 officers in line of duty. 44 officers have died in the line of duty.
30 seconds.
13 of those were automobile crashes. Not one of those involved a motorcycle. I implore you to allow the law enforcement to make the appropriate decisions to properly serve our community. Thank you.
On my left, to speak to the amendment.
Yes, Donna Ashley, Precinct 6. I just want to say that, I think, first of all, that we have a tremendous police department in this town, and I appreciate each and every one of them. And I think they know what they need. I usually would agree with the people I have elected, and I know what you're saying, Pat, but I really feel that if they feel they need them to protect us and keep us safe, that we should give them what they need. I know we don't give them anywhere near what they really need because we can't afford to. But I think at this point, if that's what they've requested, then I would recommend to this town to not do the amendment, but to give the police department of Wareham, who do a tremendous job for each and every one of us, what they want.
Thank you. Mr. Ashley?
Madam Moderator, through you to the body, our police administration knows what they need. I think we should vote down the amendment because even if they asked us for something ridiculous like 3 rhesus monkeys and a Cuban cigar, they know what they need. So we should trust that they know what they want.
Thank you. Am I right?
I'd just like to say that with regard to SEMLEC, I spoke to Chief Alves the other day, who's in charge of that unit from Cushing PD. They're going to pull the pin on sending the motorcycles to Onset because we don't participate with them. They've just been nice to us for the last 2 years.
Thank you. Is there anything further to be said on the amendment? Seeing no one standing, your vote now will come on the amendment to increase from 4 to 5 police vehicles and to take out the motorcycles. That is the amendment put before you. This requires a majority vote. All those in favor of the amendment, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed? No. The amendment is lost. We now are back to Article 6, as is before you on the screen, to approve the capital plan. And this is, you're approving the capital plan. So it requires a majority vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? It passes by a majority.
Number 8.
Article 8.
Article 8, Emergency Medical Service Budget. I move that the town vote to approve the amount of $1,321,742 to the Emergency Medical Service salary in the wages account, $291,150 to the EMS General Expense account, and further to authorize a sum of money in estimate receipts of the Emergency Medical Service account to be used to offset said appropriations in accordance with MGL Chapter 44, Section 53E.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Can I have the vote of the Board of Selectmen?
Board of Selectmen voted 4-0-0 favorable.
May I have the vote recommendation of the Finance Committee?
Finance Committee voted 7-0-0 to approve.
Thank you. Sir, speak to the article.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. This is the annual budget for the EMS. It's what's called an offset receipt. It is not paid through the general fund. It is paid by the revenues that they generate. And they do a fine job. Thank you.
You can tell it's past my bedtime. I reversed myself here, didn't I? We're all, it's warm up here. Is there anything further to be said on Article 8? Seeing no one standing, I will now call for the vote on Article 8 to approve the amount of $1,321,742, and further what is up on the screen in front of you. It requires a majority vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Passes unanimously. Article 19. We don't have 19.
Dealer's
She's
choice.
tired, too. Article 15.
Madam Moderator,
For what reason do you rise?
point of information.
State your point.
I'm aware the body voted to go beyond 10 o'clock, but when do we stop?
We stop when we're finished.
Thank you.
We only have 1, 2, 3, 7 left. Article 15. May I have a motion? The petitioner.
Hi, my name is Pam Lynch, and I'm from Cremisa Park also. But I make a motion that the town vote for the warrant as presented.
I believe what your motion would be that you move that the town approve is printed in the warrant.
As printed in the warrant.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Would you like to speak to your petition article?
Do you want me to say what I'm asking?
If you would just explain it for the rest of the body,
Certainly.
please, what you're
Certainly.
trying to accomplish.
What I am proposing is to discontinue a use of a paper road from Cedar Island Road, and its surrounding lots number 19, 1, 10, 12, 90, 9, 90, 91, and 101B. So these are lots that we have purchased, and there is an old paper road that kind of divides right through our property. We're just trying to consolidate all the property together. The paper road doesn't really go anywhere. I have pictures if anybody wants to see a picture, but I don't have it on the screen. I have been to the Selectmen, and I have been to the Finance Committee.
Thank you. May I have the vote of the Board of Selectmen?
Board of Selectmen voted to recommend 4-0-0.
May I have the vote and recommendation of the Finance Committee?
The Finance Committee recommends approval 7-0-0.
Is there anything further to be said on Article 15? Seeing no one standing, I will call for a vote. This only requires a majority to approve, as printed in your warrant, the discontinuance of a portion of Cedar Island Road. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? It is unanimous. Article 1. No, Article 1, we did at the poll.
We did that a few weeks ago.
Article 1.
We have an Article 18, yes, we do.
Elections of officers.
Article 18, but this is a petition article,
19.
I believe. Petitioner would come forward.
Frank Uccioli, Precinct 2. I move that the town vote to transfer $80,000 from certified free cash to fund the full-time position Director, Council on Aging.
Do I have a second? Have a motion and a second to explain your article?
Okay, Wareham has 22,000 residents. 1/3, about 8,000 are seniors. Since 2011 or 12, with the exception of 1 year, the position of Director of Council on Aging has been either vacant or part-time, 5 to 10 hours per week. $80,000 spread over 22,000 residents equals about $3.64 per resident per year, or a family of 5, a little over $18 per year. I think your parents, your grandparents, and the elderly couple next door are probably worth that small amount. Today's seniors were the ones that were sitting here 10, 20, 30 years ago and asked to make hard choices about a new school, a new fire station, a new police station. They stood up and made those choices. Now I feel it's the time that we stand up and assist any seniors with a director. On March 25th, I read an article in the Boston Sunday Globe regarding the senior population south of Boston to the Cape. Massachusetts is the second highest percentage of older people struggling to pay their bills and to stay in their homes, just below Mississippi. Wareham seniors are missing out on what other senior centers in other areas can give their citizens. 5 to 10 hours per week director does not provide for our seniors. The director provides professional, administrative, and supervisory work in the development and implementing of programs and services for the Council on Aging to meet the social and emotional needs of the town's elderly. They also advocate for senior needs and issues and provides coordination in the development of systems of services. What needs? Housing, food, medical, transportation, not to mention social interaction. Other communities are able to address these needs only because they're able to identify who is at risk. Wareham, without a full-time director, Wareham has no idea who is at risk. I have read that Wareham is the only community in the state that does not fund the Council on Aging director. 1 out of 350-something communities. All the other cities and towns find a way to support their seniors. Myself and others feel Wareham should be doing the same. Thank you.
Thank you. May I have the vote of the Board of Selectmen, please? Can you mic?
The Board of Selectmen voted to not recommend 5-0-0.
May I have the vote recommendation of the Finance Committee?
The Finance Committee recommends a no vote on this, 7-0-0.
Thank you. Is there anything further to be said on Article 18, Selectman Titlebaum?
Yes, through you, Madam Moderator, to the Town Administrator. What funds are being allocated, not necessarily in the budget, but allocated to fund Council on Aging services in the upcoming fiscal year?
We receive an elder services grant from the state, which is now at $12 per the senior survey or the senior census, which runs you about 5,500 people. So you're looking at a little over $60,000. You've set aside, and I believe another, between two items, $40,000, one for an outreach coordinator, one for a COA director through CETA, or through the CDBG grant that the town receives every year. We also do, which we're voting on later, you do the senior work-off, and yeah, we pay for the building stuff, obviously, through the municipal maintenance budget. So.
Okay, so it's not accurate to say that the town isn't funding the COA director position?
Yeah, we don't have it in our, in your annual budget, and I think that's what the gentleman's speaking to. We don't have it in our general fund budget. Next year, the allocation, especially if it were Ms. Dezek that would stay on board, you're looking at 19 hours per year for it. My concern is, that's great, we get one-time funding, just like we got one-time funding from the state. Who's going to leave and take a job when it's only guaranteed for 1 year?
That's a fair point. Thank you for those answers. I would add that the Board of Selectmen did unanimously vote not to recommend this article. It's not because we're hard-hearted or we don't care about the seniors, but I think one of the things that was on all our minds is the idea of trying to fund an operational position out of free cash. One of the things we've resisted, since I've been on the board and since we've encountered financial problems, is raiding free cash, half of which the selectmen have a policy is to be dedicated into our stabilization fund for a rainy day. And by rainy day, I mean a Category 3 hurricane or something like that, something disastrous. The rest of our free cash typically, as you saw earlier, goes to pay for articles that we need to buy for the town that we can't afford in our regular budgets. So, it's no fun to stand up here and ask that you not vote in favor of this article. I understand the desire to, treat the older generation, and by the way, I'm creeping up myself into that status, but I would ask the body to vote this down. I hope that you heard that the position is being funded
20
to
seconds.
some extent, and that, we are actually allocating close to the six figures to this, the services that the Council on Aging provides, regardless of whether the director works full-time.
Am I right?
Yes, thank you. Sandy Slavin, Precinct 3. Is there any way to tell us specifically what is not being done for our seniors with our part-time person versus a full-time person? And by the way, I am a senior. Thank you.
To answer the question
I think
only?
Ms. Dezek would be the best one to actually answer that.
To answer the question only?
To answer the question only?
Yes.
And the question was, what are we not doing? There is a whole lot we're not doing. A full-time director could do so much more. We are definitely doing things at the Council on Aging, which is great, through great volunteers, but we were just able to get an outreach worker through the Community Development Grant, which is supposed to be, I believe it was starting November 1st of last year and ends October. And we haven't hired one yet. Hopefully somebody will be on board in the next week, but that's going to end October 30th. Then we got community development grants for 10 hours of a director beginning next year. My outreach worker will then be gone unless we can find some other grant funds for the outreach. Outreach is important. I think we're going to find, we know the needs. If anybody would come into that office one day and sit there, we are the social service agency in town, along with being the Council on Aging. People of all ages come in there daily, looking for food, looking for housing.
Just hold on one second. I think what Mrs. Slavin was asking is, what do you not have with a part-time versus what you would have with the full-time?
We would have many more grants coming in. We'd be able to offer many more programs. We'd be able to do a whole lot more with a full-time director than we do now.
Thank you for answering the question. On my left?
Ann McGinn, Onset resident. I have a question. I heard somebody on the panel up there, and I'm not sure which one it was, say that the town of Wareham wrote a grant for Missy to be the part-time director. I was under the impression that you could not get grants for salaries. Now, I could be wrong, because I'm new to this. I came from a city where we had mayors and stuff, and we didn't have to go to town meetings. So this is all new to me. But if you could clarify, somebody up there, clarify what, again, because I'm a senior, and you know seniors don't think too well all the time. Clarify for me again what you have done for the Council on Aging and what you have done for the seniors who built this town.
To answer
And
the
I'm new, so kick me out if you want. Thank you.
To answer the question?
I don't know. I mean, when the override failed, this department was cut. It's obviously, we've worked with other departments, for instance, the library director's paid by 40% from outside funding. They run their operations through grants and such. We understand. What I'm trying to say is, this is that great, I understand what's getting behind this. They're looking for $80,000. This is the great first step. There was a group set up, the Advocate for the Elders, for fundraising to bring in this position. We've worked, and I spoke with, it was the old director of the COA, saying, yeah, it's great if we get this money, which was the state earmark, try and work towards getting grants to make this work further, because we don't believe that we can fund this in the future without more help. We're seeking outside sources. Missy's been great. We appreciate the help. What I'm trying to say is, this $80,000 isn't going to solve the problem. We need to solve the disease of this to try and figure out how to get more funding into there. And in a budget that's full with tough priorities, I understand it, and I understand that it can be offensive and it's hard, but these are the tough decisions we've had to make. So I would be well worth work together with fundraising to try and get together, to try and make it work. I would hope that we could get some more time. I know, Missy, you've given us some great help, and I appreciate it. You know, but there has to be a way to try and fix this instead of just pushing through this way. We've heard from the town. We've heard from the town twice that they do not want to give us extra money for our operating budgets. So some way we need to fix this, and a one-time $80,000 allocation isn't going to do it.
Does that answer your question?
No, it doesn't at all, because you didn't answer my question. You went on about something else, but that's okay, because we'll read about it in the Wareham Week.
Would you restate your question?
Yes. What has the town of Wareham done for the seniors? What have they done? What monies have they given to the Council on Aging? Because as long as I've been here, there has been no funding for, and that's coming up on 5 years, no funding for the Council on Aging from the town.
Okay, so that's your question. I'm going to stop you right there.
Well, that
'cause
was
that's your
part of it.
That's
That
your
wasn't-
question, is what has the town done for funding? That's
That
your
was
question?
the second part of my question. The first part was, my understanding was you could not write grants for salaries. So clarify that for me as well.
Okay, so we have two questions. Does anybody, her question is, what has the town done? And I believe, Mr. Titlebaum, you explained that at the beginning, but maybe you can explain it again?
Yeah, again, for this year, and I know it's happened in past years, the selectmen voted to authorize $20,000 in community and economic development funds, and that was, I believe, for the outreach coordinator, so that was something for the elderly. I know the town administrator has his own gift account. He's, in the past, supported the salary for the Council on Aging director out of that. You know, look, this is admittedly piecemeal. It's not been aligned in the regular budget, I believe, since the override failed. At the same time, the library was cut and we lost certification there. So, the pain was attempted to be shared equally at the time, and we're just getting back to the point now where we can get the library up and running. I think what Mr. Sullivan is asking for is to stick with our discipline in terms of not rating free cash for operations, because if we do that, I'm looking out at some drooling school committee members who will be back here next year looking for that money, and then it's going to be the municipal maintenance department, then it's going to be the police.
To answer her question, thank you. And I think she had a second question.
About grants?
About grants.
If the grant allows to pay for salaries, you can go for that grant and it can pay for salaries.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Did I see the Council on Aging Director? Were you standing to speak?
I was. I can wait.
On my left?
Yes, Rosalie Bulu, Precinct 2. Just to say that sometimes you have to invest money to make money. Missy is great. She's got a lot of great ideas, and she's got the knowledge that a director needs, and I think she's a good investment. It would be a shame to lose her, because I think she could recoup the money that the $80,000. She could, she would be able to recoup that. I just know that. She's a smart cookie. Thank you.
Thank you. Am I right?
I move the question.
I have a, state your point.
I just want to make sure everybody understands, this says to fund a full-time position, and that's what was asked. Ms. Stezic, and she can speak for herself if I'm incorrect on this, you cannot do a full-time position.
And again, it's about the position, not me.
Right, I'm just saying, speaking to the last person.
I don't want to. I don't want
Okay,
to.
just want to make sure.
Okay, we have a motion before us to move the question. I will now take the vote to move the question. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed? It passes. We now will take a vote on Article 18. What comes before you is Article 18 to transfer $80,000 from certified free cash to fund the full-time position for the Director of Council on Aging. This requires a majority vote. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed? No. The article fails.
Count. 7 people left. Make it count. 7 people standing.
I need to see 7 people standing.
Yep.
Okay. I will now call for a hand count on Article 18. If the tellers would please come forward. All those in favor of Article 18, please hold up your cards. In the front,
1.
to my right,
6.
in the middle,
31, 3-1.
and on my left.
10, 1-0.
All those opposed, please hold your cards up. In the front,
22.
to my right,
22-0.
in the middle,
38, 3-8.
and on my left.
21, 2-1.
There are 48 votes in the affirmative, 101 in the negative. The article is lost. Article 5.
Article 5, occasional reports. I move that the town receive and hear occasional reports as printed in the warrant.
Have a motion and a second. I believe that the only report that we have was from Community Preservation, and they did it in the form of a handout, so there are no verbal reports to report. So I will now take a vote on Article 5 to receive the report from Community Preservation. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes. Unanimously.
11.
Article 11. Do we have 3 left? Yeah, we have 3 left after this. Article 11.
Article 11, 2019 Community Preservation Fund Reserves. I move that the town vote to approve Article 11 as printed in the warrant.
I have a second? Second. I have a second. To speak to the article?
Madam Moderator, this is something we do every year to set up the reserves for Community Preservation Fund.
Thank you. May I have the vote of the Board of Selectmen?
Board of Selectmen voted 400 to recommend.
May I have the vote and recommendation of the Finance Committee?
The Finance Committee recommends approval 700.
Thank you. Is there anything further to be said on Article 11? Seeing no one standing, I will call for the vote to approve Article 11 as printed in your warrant. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Aye. Passes by majority. Article 7.
Budget. I move that the town vote to raise and appropriate from levy, state, and local receipts the sum of $54,943,548, transfer $140,000 from available funds, and transfer $890,917 from the Water Pollution Control Enterprise Fund.
Do I have a second? To speak to the article?
Thank you, Madam Moderator. We've created a budget, a balanced budget it was with limited funds, and it's with competing priorities from different departments and from different wishes from within the community. I've been told that the sign of a good deal is that everybody's equally unhappy, so I think we've got a pretty good deal here with this budget. I've really appreciated the work that's been done from the department heads, the school department, the Finance Committee, Board of Selectmen, the school committee. And I'm sorry to take this moment. I do want to thank one person in particular who is leaving us, and just give a round of applause. Did he leave us? Did Michael McMillan? Is he gone now? Did he just leave? Is that a little early? No, there's the other one. There's Michael. Thank you, Michael. Within the administration handout, you could see the sections of the budget. You've seen the displays of where our expenses go, where our revenues come from. You've seen what's the main question to us all the time. What does it cost in competing towns? What are they paying for taxes? Make sure you include the district taxes in there. And we've put those in the documents. What you have before you is a budget that's been voted upon by, and I believe, all the departments. The school committee has approved it tonight as well. So this is what's before you, and I appreciate all the time and effort that's gone into it. Thank you all.
May I have the vote and recommendation of the Board of Selectmen?
Board of Selectmen voted to recommend 400.
May I have the vote and the recommendation of the Finance Committee?
Finance Committee recommends approval 700.
Okay, as we normally do with the budget, what I'm going to do is go through it by line item. If you have any questions or anything that you want to stand up to speak to, just holler hold, and we will take that out and come back to it. So town meetings, selectmen's wages or expenses, town administrator wages or expenses, finance committee expenses, reserve fund.
Madam Moderator, point of order.
State your point.
I can't read this. This is, yeah.
Please
okay.
come to the microphone.
I'm sorry. I'm just asking that Matthew make it much bigger font so that we can actually see what we're voting on. I don't have a problem with the budget, I just can't read it.
It's in your handout.
Okay, I'll try and find it.
It should be in your handout. Reserve fund, town accountant, wages or expenses, audit, assessors wages or expenses, treasurer wages or expenses, general services wages or expenses, legal services, personnel services wages or expenses, information management technology wages or expenses, information management technology communications, town clerk wages or expenses, elections and registrations wages or expenses, planning and community development wages or expenses, sick leave bonus wages, police wages, expenses or capital, inspectional services wages or expenses, division of natural resources wages or expenses, municipal maintenance and public buildings wages, municipal maintenance and public buildings, snow and ice wages or expenses, street lights general, Board of Health wages or expenses, Commission on Disabilities, Veterans Council, library wages or expenses, Historical District Commission, Historical Committee, net school spending, non-net school spending, debt principal, debt interest short-term, other costs, veterans assessments, Serpent assessment, employee benefits, Plymouth County Retirement, LIUNA, workers' comp, town insurance general liability, unemployment, medical insurance, life insurance, FICA. No one has called any holds. We're not going back to any articles, so therefore your vote will now become on the budget as was presented in the main motion to raise and appropriate from levy, state and local receipts the sum of $54,943,548, to transfer $140,000 from available funds and transfer $890,917 from the Water Pollution Control Enterprise Fund. This requires a majority vote. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Passes unanimously. Article 20. And then we only have one after that.
Article 20.
We don't have a 20. We don't have a 20.
We have 10, 10's left.
Okay, we have number 10. This should be our last one. This is our last one. May I have a motion on Article 10?
Article 10, Water Pollution Control Facility Enterprise Fund. I move that the town vote to appropriate $6,571,924 from Water Pollution Control Facility enterprise revenues and $1,317,156 from Water Pollution Control Facility betterment revenues/betterment reserves to defray Water Pollution Control Facility direct costs, and that $890,917 as appropriated under Article 7 of the Spring 2018 Annual Town Meeting be used for water pollution control facility indirect costs to fund the total cost of operation of the Water Pollution Control Facility Enterprise Fund.
I have a
Second.
I have a motion and a second to speak to Article 10.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. This is the annual sewer budget. It's an enterprise fund, so it's paid separately and the accounts are held separately from the town. The town does certain operations and pays for certain things such as health benefits, insurances, et cetera, which is the $890,000 that you see up there. And before we finish, I thank you all for staying here tonight. I know it's been a late night. Thank you again for your time.
May I have the vote of the Board of Selectmen?
Board of Selectmen voted to recommend 400.
May I have the vote and recommendation of the Finance Committee?
Finance Committee recommends approval, 800.
Thank you. Is there anything further to be said on Article 10? Seeing no one standing, I will now call for the vote on Article 10. It is a simple majority. You're voting on the motion that is before you to appropriate monies to the Water Pollution Control
That's it.
Facility, as is before you. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Passes unanimously. I will now entertain a motion to dissolve
moved.
the meeting.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor to dissolve tonight's meeting, please say aye. All those opposed? Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very, very much for staying and getting this
Yep.
done.
Thank you all.